Hello there, I'm Mark Robbins. As NFL training camps begin all around the league over the next few days, maybe the biggest topic of conversation, not about what's happening on the field, but the league's pressure on players to get vaccinated for COVID-19. Here's Chiefs star quarterback Patrick Mahomes.
It's your choice. Do whatever you think's best for you and your family. I don't let it become a distraction. We kind of go about business as we're trying to do whatever we can to win. And if you're not vaccinated, just try to be smart, wear your mask, try to limit your interactions with other people.
That's Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs, rookies, and QBs have arrived at camp, and Mahomes says he has no restrictions after off-season foot surgery. ESPN's Courtney Cronin reports the Vikings are letting assistant coach Rick Dennison go after his refusal to receive a COVID-19 vaccination. The Vikings say they're still in conversations with Coach Dennison. A league source tells ESPN the Patriots are not going to have co-offensive line coach Cole Popovich with the team this season, and that decision also related to COVID-19 vaccination. Major League Baseball, Cleveland's going to be known as the Guardians beginning next season. Right now, the Indians and Guardians trail Tampa Bay 3-0. That's in the second inning. Bottom of the second at Fenway. Red Sox trailing the Yankees 1-0 there. The Yankees are getting pitchers Nestor Cortez and Jonathan Loáisiga back off the COVID-19 list. And the Mets acquire Rich Hill from Tampa Bay for 2 minor leaguers.
It's Jay Cornette and Monday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. We're 1 day away from the day in Green Bay. We'll tell you if Aaron Rodgers is any closer to showing up for camp. KJZ on Monday on ESPN Radio.
Isn't this a sports show?
A couple of things. One from Brady on YouTube says, "Oh, so weird to look at you all after all this time listening on the pod." Yeah, there's a chance you've never seen us before, and this is what we look like. 3 of the 5 hottest dudes on Twitch.
Almost entirely.
Unzip for the camera, Rudy.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Now, Beards, you did say slash and not plus. Are you only playing video games in either a hoodie or pajama pants?
I'll leave that to the imagination.
I would rather you leave less to my imagination.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
I would like less imagination in this segment. I've got Beards now getting out of the bath and then Winnie the Poohing while he's playing video games on the couch. This sucks. This is a stupid, bad show, and I hate it.
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Happy Friday. I hope this is marking the end of a good week and the beginning of a good weekend for you, dear listeners. There is no Rudy Salazar in the studio today, so I don't know if that's going to throw off kind of your whole vibe headed into the weekend, but I am here. Beards McFly is here on the other side of the glass. Rudy's just out. Day off, family stuff. I can't, it's all the details all blur together. He's in the Hamptons having a party. That's almost certainly not that one. But Rudy Salazar not here with us tonight. We'll be back Monday, presumably. And we've got a handful of things that we can talk about here as we are officially, I think, I'm willing to say at least, in training camp season. We are back in press conference season. We are in talk to the rookies about what they've brought to camp season. And it all started today with what I believe is going to be the last Zoom press conference that the Chiefs are going to have, at least for a while, is my understanding at this point. I am vaxxed and tested and ready to head up to St. Joe on Sunday. They'll actually be open for the first time tomorrow, though, to media and the rookies. They'll be practicing there. Don't believe there are any fans going up at any point this weekend, so don't book your trip unless you're Matt Derrick and you're listening to this show casually and you've just realized, oh bleep, I knew I had something important this weekend. But I doubt that is where Matt is at. But we heard from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Creed Humphrey, and Nick Bolton today. It's quarterbacks. It's quarterbacks and rookies. I think there are a handful of guys that Andy Reid mentioned who are coming off of injuries that are already up there. A couple of guys who are not yet there. It sounds like Kyle Long won't be up in St. Joe for a little while longer still, even after the veterans report, is my understanding of what Andy Reid said today. Maybe that shifts a little bit, but some guys working their way back and some rookies trying to work their way into the actual system itself. We'll talk about what we heard today and also the Alex Okafor signing and a few other Chiefs topics with our friend Jordan Foote of Arrowhead Report here in about 20 minutes or so. Also, I told you last night that it seemed like it was all moving really, really fast. It seems like it's moving even faster now. Texas and Oklahoma, by a handful of reports at this point, are out or on their way out. I don't know if it's a foot out the door and the other foot is no longer touching the ground on the inside. I don't know if they are already in the loving embrace of the SEC. But this stuff did not leak until it was really, really happening. And so I think it is safe to say it is really, really happening. We know that. But what happens next? What happens next for the Big 12? What happens next for Texas and Oklahoma? What happens next for all of the teams in the Big 12 who are going to have to either land somewhere or hold the Big 12 together? We'll talk about all that at about 8:30 tonight with Ari Temkin, a regular you may know from the drill on the program, somebody I've had the pleasure of working with for quite a while now, actually, and does some great work covering the Big 12, as well as also some, Dallas football and all of that. We're not going to talk about the Cowboys with Ari tonight. We're going to talk about the Big 12. But we'll talk to him about 8:30, Jordan Foote, in about 20 minutes. And a handful of interesting things, some more vax stuff out of the NFL, a couple of coaches that are parting ways with their teams over some vaccination disagreements. We'll get to some of that, and we'll see what kind of energy and what kind of mood you find me in as we cross that threshold. But I wanted to start with a few things on from the pressers from today, from Andy Reid, from Patrick Mahomes. And we will start in order on the list there, Beards. You asked me that question right before the show started, and I had to admit that I had not really done it in an order of any sorts in the Google Doc. It's just sort of got a bunch of Andy Reid clips.
Good, because I painstakingly went through while you were opening up the monologue there, and I ordered them all. So
let's play the seventh one second and the third one.
Dang it.
Can we play that Creed Humphrey clip first, please? No, I want to start with Andy Reid. I want to start.
I don't have the Creed Humphrey clip open.
Well, that's. We're probably not going to get to it this segment anyway, if I'm being honest. Good. But I would like to have it at some point, But
listen this Friday.
What does that even mean, though?
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.
I guess that's true. All right. You know what, Beards? You win. You win that one. That is what it means. But Andy Reid, he opened up his presser in a what seemed like a fresh new Hawaiian shirt. The only way to really truly start off training camp in style. And he talked about some of the injured guys and being glad to be back up in St. Joe for the whole dorm room environment of training camp, the way that the Chiefs in an increasingly, I guess a decreasingly smaller amount of teams are doing it. But Andy Reid also, somewhere in that monologue, talked a little bit about where the Chiefs stand currently on the vaccination front. We talked about this a lot last night, that the NFL has laid out this new memo saying, hey, if you have an outbreak among unvaccinated players and we can't get it rescheduled, which what does that mean really? Hard to say. But if we can't get it rescheduled, you guys will be the ones held accountable for it. Nobody gets paid, which is also, by the way, kind of quietly the way that it would have worked last year as well, apparently, according to a report I saw earlier today. It was a message from the NFLPA, actually, that made that point. So it's not that a whole lot of things are different from last year, but the difference is that this year there is a choice to be made. You can choose to be vaccinated against COVID. Last year, everyone just had to try to figure it out as they went along because the NFL was not going to cancel the season. Anyway, obviously very much top of mind. Andy Reid knew he was going to get asked about it. He did get asked about it, and we'll play some of those clips in a minute as well. But his opening statement gave kind of the overall vaccination update for the Chiefs, and he broke a little bit of news in terms of where the Chiefs stand compared to the rest of the NFL in terms of vaccinations.
We've got about 90% of our players have taken the shot, and so and are in that protocol there as far as what the league's put forward for us. So 100% of the staff, they've all been vaccinated, so that's a positive. Um, there's some stats that I know you guys know, but 79, or you could say 80% of NFL players have at least one of the shots. So that's within the National Football League, and there's 6 teams that are over 90%. So we're glad to be in that. They're 90% or over, and we're glad to be in that area there. So we're one of the teams where the players have really um, have made, they've challenged themselves to get things done and take care of business. So there are different protocols that take place for vaccinated players and unvaccinated players, but again, that's all for safety purposes, which it's an important part of it as you go forward. And the league's trying to do the best they possibly can to make that as simple a process as possible.
So the extra little bit of information there that Reid gave, I'll quote again here, quoting from a tweet from Albert Breer, who is quoting NFL CMO, Chief Medical Officer Alan Stills, on a conference call from earlier today before Andy Reid's press conference. 80% of all NFL players are in fact vaccinated. 9 teams have over 90% of players with at least one vaccination shot, and just 5 teams remain under 70%. So now we know the Chiefs are among those 9 teams at or above 90%, which is great news for a variety of reasons. One is that it is a competitive advantage. If you have 90% of your roster that is now I guess I can't say 100% certain because there are breakthrough cases, but even by the way, Bill Self tested positive for COVID today. There's a little bit of news for you that I think broke towards the end of the program. I'm guessing they were able to bring that up. But Bill Self tested positive for COVID today. Peter Vermees tested positive yesterday, 2 days ago, something like that. So there are, and both of them have said they're fully vaccinated. You also, though, have the benefit of if you are fully vaccinated and still end up being infected with COVID, seems to be that the symptoms are significantly less serious, and you're much more likely to have non-serious symptoms, even if you do end up catching it. The Delta variant's going to throw a curveball to all of us as we figure all this out, yada, yada, yada. But the competitive advantage is that your team is significantly less susceptible to COVID, either in terms of the symptoms that could come through or really the incredible rate at which the vaccines prevent you from contracting COVID, even if you do run into it somewhere out in the world. So that's an advantage that, last year nobody had. This year teams get to decide if they have it or not. And the Chiefs pretty thoroughly have. Also, at least for my money, in my eyes, this is great news because Missouri right now is making national headlines as being one of the states in America, top 2, I think at least, that is sort of in the most dire straits in terms of vaccinations stalling and infections and hospitalizations rising. Hopefully, if it's you listening now, or if it's somebody who will never hear this show but heard Andy Reid say that 100% of his staff and 90% of the Kansas City Chiefs are vaccinated against COVID, maybe somebody hears that and says, you know what, all right. If it's good enough for Patrick Mahomes and 90% of these elite athletes that I love going to see every Sunday or love watching on TV every Sunday, whatever, it's good enough for me. Hopefully there's an example set there, just that it can be an encouragement to anyone else who may continue to be hesitant. I don't know. That's me being hopeful. And at this point, how many times is hope actually rewarded? I don't know. But I'm being hopeful on that point. But also, it puts them in a space there above the rest of the NFL for the most part. About a third of teams are at that 90% threshold. The Chiefs among them, which is great. And we'll get to Andy Reid kind of on the other remaining 10% there in a minute. But one thing that there is a word that gets tossed around NFL locker rooms more often than I think it should, because it can be kind of a loaded word. But it's literally like this phrase is painted on walls in the locker room at Arrowhead. Eliminate distractions. The word being distractions. sometimes I think the word distraction is kind of a cop-out. To pick, like, from Andy Reid's career, they brought in Michael Vick in Philadelphia. That was a distraction. There were protests outside of the game because he'd gotten out of prison for dogfighting. That was a distraction, but it was worth it to them to try to get Michael Vick back behind center playing football again. So it's not, a clear binary choice. It's not a 1 or a 0. It is on a scale of what distractions are worth it and all of that. But in this case, to not have infighting in your locker room about science, to not have it be something that ends up being a part of every single press conference all year long. The Bills are going to have questions about vaccines all year long because Cole Beasley, and I think it's a linebacker whose name I cannot retain for the moment, who are tweeting not just like crazy bleep. Former Chiefs defensive back and most recently Buccaneers defensive back, Antonio Hamilton, did the whole Notes app thing. And there is some just deep, dark corners of YouTube stuff in there that's not I just want to make a choice. It's here's how this was all created by a dark wizard. Not quite that verbatim, but it's close to it. 9/10 of the Chiefs locker room, as of right now, is not even having that conversation. They don't have to. There's no reason to, because 90% of them are on the same page, and all of the coaches are on the same page. That's great. That is a place that is relatively easy to be unified, where the logic and the science is very clear, and they can just, again, you are ultimately, assuming that it gets to maybe 95, and maybe some of those guys don't end up being on the roster when the season gets here, I don't know. If we find out that Chris Jones, who did post an Instagram thing on his story whenever Cole Beasley was making his first rounds, Chris Jones did put up tell it to him at whatever Cole Beasley's Instagram handle is, sort of thing. And that makes me a little concerned. If it comes out that Chris Jones is not vaccinated, if it's a star, whoever it may be, that will be a story. But for the most part, you are going to hear less about vaccinations around your football team in Kansas City this year than you will in several other places around the league. It's a good thing for the Kansas City Chiefs as a football team. So noteworthy and good news there. I also think it's interesting just because it's something deeply ingrained in society right now. And Andy Reid did talk about being at that 90% threshold, what his message is to the other 10% of the locker room that's not there yet.
Yeah, listen, I don't have anything to say one way or the other with the 10%. They know the guys that have been vaccinated and haven't been vaccinated. They know all the coaches have been. So it's not anything that I'm hoping that they all stay safe. That's what I hope, and that they don't get the virus. And that's most important in my eyes. However it's done, let's keep people safe, and that's where I'm at.
If I was going to nitpick on that, because I cringed a little bit listening to it the first time, I'm going to go full circle here, so give me a second. I would have loved to hear Andy Reid say, I want everyone to stay healthy. That's my best interest, and that's what I'm rooting for everybody. And it's scientifically proven at this point that the best way to stay healthy is to get vaccinated. I would have loved it if he would have dismounted that way. But also, what Andy Reid is saying there is that 90% of our team and 100% of our coaching staff has chosen to keep themselves and the people around them safe by getting vaccinated, vis-a-vis, I hope the other 10% follow up with the example being set by everybody else. And I think that's reasonable. Again, could you be more explicit about it? Sure. But Andy Reid's not going to try to needle anybody or say, hey, you're not smart enough to figure this out yourself. I think we are finding, that can be true in some instances, but that's not where Andy Reid is at. Andy Reid's saying, look, I want to be healthy. I want everyone to be on the same page. I want to be unified here. I want to be in as good a shape as possible. And I'll let you choose how to do that for yourself, even as you see that I and the whole staff and 90% of the team have picked one way of doing that. You probably should too. But again, I am happy to hear that the Chiefs are 90% vaccinated. I was hoping to hear that today, but I wasn't, expecting it necessarily. And so a little good news on that front. Very, very welcome. You know what, Beard? Here's what I'm thinking. Let's go ahead and bounce on that note. There's our little vaccination thing for the day today. In fact, actually, you know what? Here's what I will make the note of with the Chiefs being 100% vaccinated among staff. Courtney Cronin of ESPN reported this about Rick Dennison. He's a Vikings offensive line coach / run game coordinator, and he is out reportedly after refusing to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Mike Zimmer is not exactly the first person that I would have thought of to say, like, hey, man, we got to be on the same page here or we can't work together. But there's a very practical logic behind that to say, hey, if you can't be, like, hands-on with our players, you can't be there on the sideline coaching them. You have to play by a different set of rules because you, an older man, are not going to get vaccinated, even though obviously that is a much better route to take than getting COVID. We're not gonna have any real space for you. I thought that was super interesting, and then we found out that the Patriots co-offensive line coach Cole Popovich also won't be with the Patriots in 2021 in a decision related to the COVID-19 vaccine and NFL guidelines, as Mike Reese tweeted earlier today. You have two coaches there with Mike Zimmer and Bill Belichick being the guys who go, no. Get vaccinated, or maybe we'll talk to you a year from now.
I was very curious as to why Greg Popovich was on the Patriots staff earlier.
Would it surprise you?
A little bit.
But, like, if you're like, hey, Greg Popovich is going to get into the NFL game as, like, an advisor or something, I would put him with the Patriots. I feel like he and Belichick would get along.
Could he just sneakily replace Pete Carroll, or could they replace each other?
Pete Carroll is old, but Popovich looks old. I bet they're closer in age than you would think. Let's find that out, and then we'll take our break. This is the way to do it.
Does Pete Carroll play Greg Popovich in the movie?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
There we go.
Yeah, maybe he grows the beard out a little bit.
Lets his hair grow out in the back.
Holy bleep. Okay, so
Carroll's older than you think.
Right, that's always true. But my lasting image of Greg Popovich is from this year, where he has basically Benjamin Franklin hair,
yes,
and a white beard that makes him look sort of like an old wizard. Do you know how old Greg Popovich is? And then Pete Carroll is like chomping gum. He's got white hair, but that dude, like, he's in good shape. He's
68.
I feel like he could outrun me. You know, I think I would lose a race to Pete Carroll. I think I would dust Greg Popovich.
68 for Pop.
Pop is 72.
Okay.
Pete Carroll is 69, which is nice, obviously.
Why?
Pete Carroll is 3 years younger than Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich looks like he could be Pete Carroll's dad. Greg Popovich could be the grandfather of Sean McVay, who could be Pete Carroll's son.
Yes, that's fair.
That family tree could absolutely exist. And they all have the same job, and Greg Popovich is only 3 years older than Pete Carroll. Crazy. Absolutely ridiculous. Pete Carroll probably is actually old enough to be Sean McVay's dad, right?
Probably. Isn't McVay like 38, 39? Maybe he's 40 now?
40. Oh, God, he's 30.
He's old now?
He's 35. Never mind.
Okay.
Oof. Anyway, I think the family tree of Pete Carroll, or of Sean McVay, Pete Carroll, Greg Popovich looks about right. Again, they all have the same job, and Pete Carroll and Greg Popovich are 3 years apart. Anyway, there might be more things that come out of the NFL. Certainly players who are not vaccinated on the bubble will get cut if they end up being right there neck and neck with another player who is on the bubble. It's also just kind of a wild thing. It's like, again, for Antonio Hamilton, he is a bubble player. And for all the things that bubble players go through in the NFL to try to keep a roster spot, to stay on the roster, it's a pretty wild place to decide you're going to put your foot down and maybe end your career a year or two early, or at least cost yourself an opportunity. It's very strange. It's not great that it comes to that, but also, like, we are well beyond the point of it's not great. So I have relatively little smoke on that one. Let's take a break. Whenever we come back, I want to talk to our friend Jordan Foote from Arrowhead Report about some of the things we heard today from Andy Reid, from Patrick Mahomes, hear what he's looking forward to from training camp coming up, really starting in earnest tomorrow morning, and also Alex Okafor. He had some interesting thoughts on that in terms of the Chiefs' edge rusher. So I want to talk to Jordan about all of that and more. We'll do it on the other side of the break here on Almost Entirely Sports.
Hey, what's up? This is Vanilla Ice, and you're listening to Sports Radio 810 WHB.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
All right, well, so we've talked Chiefs for 9 hours this week. What are we going to do for this 10th hour? Porgs, 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 porgs,
Get rid of your
porgs.
pennies!
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Feels like a night where Beard is going to pick some ESPN Kansas City airliners.
I think that's a recent one.
I mean, I guess it's possible. I don't know. Rudy is out tonight. Me and Beards are here. Happy Friday. And we have our I think it's really sort of training camp eve tonight as the Chiefs are in St. Joe, at least the quarterbacks and rookies and coaches, of course. I talked about that a little bit last segment. But I want to talk about what's next for some of those guys and also some of the recent things the Chiefs have done, some things they have said today. We'll talk about it all with Jordan Foote. He is the deputy editor of the incomparable arrowheadreport.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Footnoted. There's an E in the middle because that's how Foot is spelled when it's the last name. You get it. Jordan, thank you for making some time for us here tonight. How absolutely insightful did you find today's press conferences?
I don't know. I mean, there was a little bit of everything as in regards to the vaccines. That was all good stuff. That's more of a insight / feel-good story. There was some Patrick Mahomes being asked about his toe again, and he clarified that again. So kind of a mixed bag. I think that kind of comes with the territory of being the training camp eve type news conference. And as some more interesting stuff happens, they'll have more to talk about.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And one of the things where Andy Reid did give us a little bit of information is kind of around the Frank Clark stuff and the defensive end position and all of that. And I want to branch into that in a second. But first, the main thing I wanted to talk to you about really is the last couple of musical chairs that we've seen shuffled around at the edge position for the Chiefs. They were interested in Melvin Ingram. He ends up going to the Steelers. The next day, they bring back Alex Okafor. What was your thought process? Because I know we had touched base briefly on the idea of Alex Okafor being back. I hadn't even thought about Alex Okafor in like 3 straight months. What did you think before that news came down and then after it did, that Okafor was back for a third year with the Chiefs?
Yeah, I think actually you and I had texted about it because we saw on Twitter that people were sharing, does it make sense for the Chiefs to reunite with Alex Okafor? And I think we both sent like the laughing emoji, like that's never going to happen. They'll do that. And then naturally they did. So leading up to it, I didn't expect them to make that sort of move. I didn't know what his health status was, whether, things end on good terms, bad terms. You never know in the NFL unless people go out and say it. So that needed to be taken into account. But the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. Personally, I think that the Chiefs kind of need somebody like that who can provide that stability at the edge position, and we'll go way more in depth. But initial thoughts, I like it. It's nothing that moves the needle greatly, but it's something that I think will help them this season.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense whenever you do consider they were apparently in on Ingram, and I guess that could change depending on how much you thought he would move the needle. And I think people probably overestimated that to some extent. I kind of like Melvin Ingram as a bit of a sort of a veteran lottery ticket where if he's not healthy, he is giving you nothing. But if he is, maybe you have a chance for a return to form. But the Chiefs clearly knew that there was room to improve their depth at that position. I don't expect Okafor to start week 1. I guess maybe unless Frank Clark does get suspended, but we'll see. But most importantly, you to sort of steal a phrase from our friend Seth Kaiser, like you have to be this tall to get playing time to ride this ride. You saw some issues last year where Tano Passanio seems to no longer be tall enough to ride that ride. You don't want to be in a spot where Josh Kando has to play if he's not ready, I guess. So does that logic hold for you in terms of Okafor? Is that where you would essentially slot him in?
Yeah, 100%. And you compare him and Ingram, and the situation is the comparison's perfect but imperfect. I think neither one of them would have done a whole lot for the Chiefs. Ingram at this point is more of a pass rush specialist. Like, I don't even see him as an every down guy, let alone if he's healthy or not healthy. And it's not like Okafor has had a clean bill of health with the Chiefs. I think he's played 21 games in 2 years, so it's not completely perfect to say he's going to be reliable or whatever. But on the snaps he does play, I think he is better than the guys they have. Like, you bring up Josh Kando, he is a lottery ticket, a wild card, a rookie who hasn't understood the playbook yet, hasn't played an NFL down yet, has the athletic tools, doesn't have a whole lot right now. His pass rush plan is still very raw. Mike Dana, last year's, I believe, 5th-round pick, he's a guy that good on early downs. Like, if you need him to set the edge, play contain, he can do that. But then once you need some pass rush juice from him, he is pretty much all out. So that's something that was going to come back to bite the Chiefs. You have Taco Charlton. He is the opposite of Mike Dana, a guy that can come in on 3rd down or 4th down and do some stuff, generate some pass rush, do things that way. They didn't have an every down guy. They had Frank Clark. His status is a little bit up in the air. We'll see what happens there. And they have Chris Jones. And Chris Jones is a half defensive tackle, half edge rusher at this point. I mean, he's not going to be the 3rd down guy. So at the very least, I think Okafor kind of gives them some stability. He's familiar with the system. He's played there before. He knows what Steve Spagnuolo is going to ask of everybody. And he is a step up from throwing a random guy out there on 1st and 2nd down or throwing a random guy out there on third down and hoping for the best.
Who do you think Okafor, let's say guys do predominantly stay healthy and perform at levels that you would generally expect at this point, who do you think he's most likely to take playing time away from?
Well, the most logical thing, I guess, would be Chris Jones on the edge. Like, I think Frank Clark is going to be that guy no matter what, as long as he's healthy. But on the opposite side, you'd think Charlton would come in on third downs. You'd think Dana would be an early down guy, Jones an early down guy. So it only makes sense that either Okafor doesn't take anyone's snaps really and just serves as an insurance policy, or he takes some snaps away from Jones. But then you listen to what Andy Reid said, and I figured we were going to talk about that soon, is he made it a point in the press conference today to finish up whatever he was talking about. I can't remember what it was. I think Jaron Reed. And then coming back and saying, oh, by the way, bringing in Jaron Reed and having him makes Chris Jones playing on the edge possible. By the way, Chris has been working out there. You could tell in the tone of his voice that he really seemed, I don't know what the word would be, enthusiastic. He seemed serious about Chris Jones spending some time on the edge. So I don't know what their plan is exactly, but having an experienced and healthy, hopefully, body in there that's a veteran, it definitely can't hurt.
We can do you one better on what Andy Reid said there because we didn't get a chance to play this audio in the first segment. I thought we might actually play it here. Here's Andy Reid on exactly what Jordan was just talking about.
Yeah, so listen, we brought old 97 back and put him back in the mix here last week. So I think that's a good addition. And yeah, I think we're going to be okay there. We've got a couple of young guys that we think are good football players too. So let me add this to you too. And just a reminder that Chris was working both spots. So we have the flexibility to move Chris out there. And that's where the Jaron Reed part of this, I think, was a big addition that Veach added to us.
So that pause was actually about twice as long, and Brad G was about to go to the next question in the Zoom call before Andy Reid doubled back, like you said, Jordan, to make the point about Chris Jones, because the initial question was sort of defensive in depth if Frank Clark misses time and all of that. And I do think it's interesting that basically, without specifically being asked about Chris Jones, and certainly without being specifically asked about Jaron Reed, Andy Reid went back and made sure he did bring both of those guys up by name.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I know that the Reed signing, he shouted out Brett Veach for that and said, having him makes the Chris Jones thing possible, but Andy doesn't do that a lot, like the dramatic pause and then, oh, by the way, like kind of going out of his way to speak about something, and no one really served him up an alley-oop for Chris Jones, to bring it up, and he said, oh, yeah, by the way, guys, like this is something I want to get across. Chris Jones is going to do this. And I think all offseason, especially at the beginning, like when they signed Reed, I kind of scratched my head a bit and said they have two really good interior defensive linemen, and then they have Colin Saunders, they have Turk Wharton. Like, it doesn't make sense to add another competitive starting caliber body there. But then you bring up Chris Jones going to the outside. I didn't buy into it at first. I said there's no reason for that. Then he comes into OTAs like noticeably slimmer. There's some smoke there, and now it seems like Andy Reid kind of confirmed, hey guys, this is part of our plan. This is what we're going to do. Then you think of Alex Okafor. It's going to be interesting to see how they split up those snaps, but also keeping Reid fresh, keeping Jones fresh, having guys like Tershawn Wharton who can come in on later downs, having Taco Charlton healthy. They're going to be able to mix up the defensive line picture pretty much as they want. Whether that's a good thing or not remains to be seen.
I'm going to give you one more thing here on the edge spot. I'm going to give you kind of a counterpoint. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. I'm not sure if I believe this more than what I said earlier or whatever, but I'm curious how you would respond to sort of this mindset. Bring back Alex Okafor doesn't matter and is not going to be worth the money because they have Mike Dana, who can do a lot of that same stuff, and he's younger. They have Taco Charlton, where maybe he's got a higher pass rush ceiling than Okafor at this point in his career. And really, the defensive end group now is like 6 guys you don't really know what to do with, and it all comes down to Frank Clark and Chris Jones. What would you say to that?
I think there's some truth there. You made some good points. Like Mike Dana, he's a guy that he doesn't have the pass rush ability of Okafor. Not to say Okafor is a great pass rusher or anything, but if you needed both of them to secure the edge and stack and shed and play solid run defense, I think they do it at the same level. So you bring in Okafor, a guy that I don't want to speculate about Frank Clark, and I don't want to say Okafor is just an insurance policy for Frank Clark, but it makes you wonder, man. And that's the thing we've been talking about for the past 5 minutes or so. No one knows what the exact plan is, how many snaps he's going to get, who he's taking snaps from. But Taco Charlton, obviously a much bigger pass rush, a much higher pass rush ceiling than a guy like Alex Okafor. It only makes sense that they'd bring in a guy with experience playing all three downs when you can kind of manufacture all three. You can have Chris Jones on first and second down. You can have Charlton on third. You can have Kando on third. You can have Dana on first and second. It makes you wonder, maybe they're thinking, if Frank Clark isn't there, who can do it consistently at the same rate as him in terms of snaps? And Okafor is pretty much the only guy that can do that.
I think that last point's a very good one, so we can leave the rest of that there. As we stand right now, it's rookies and quarterbacks reporting to camp, and again, we'll have press conferences live for you tomorrow on Sports Saturday. I'll be out there on Sunday, so we'll have you covered here on 810. But with that being said, of these rookies that are going to make their way, or have made their way to St. Joe and will have their first training camp practice tomorrow, who are you buying stock in right now? Who intrigues you the most from the group? You say, you know what, this guy right here, maybe he deserves a little more conversation right now as we look at this rookie class.
I think Noah Gray deserves a lot of credit, and Creed Humphrey is the obvious answer, I think. But everyone pretty much believes he's going to be starting, so that doesn't even really need to be brought up. He's going to be the guy. He's got the press. He's got the coaches talking about him. Trey Smith is a guy to keep an eye on. He's had some smoke there in terms of the Chiefs seem to like him. But Noah Gray, I keep coming back to him. He's a guy that fits that H-back role. He can leak out of the backfield and catch some passes. He can block. He can run routes with nuance and head fakes and stutter steps like a Travis Kelce-esque type coming into the league. He's an interesting prospect, and I don't know what his year one role is going to be. Is he going to catch 20 balls? Is he going to catch 30? Is he going to catch 10? You know, how many snaps is he going to get? Will he beat out Blake Bell and Nick Keiser? He received some snaps with the ones in OTAs when Kelce wasn't there, and that's what I want to bring up is the Chiefs are extremely purposeful in the snaps that they allocate in times like this. They're not going to take a guy like Jody Fortson, as much as everyone has wanted him to get some snaps, and say, you know what, Jody, you're going to work with the ones today. Or Lucas Niang, if we're really not that high on you, but we want to see what you can do, you're going to go work with the ones today. Like whoever the Chiefs have out there, that's who they want. And that applies to a lot of teams, but with a team like the Chiefs, when you know heading into the year, you have a general picture of what they want. You have a general picture of their goal. It's to win the Super Bowl. They have the quarterback. They have the stars on offense. They have the stars on defense. They're not going to have a trial and error in camp. And Reid brings up competition and healthy competition and bringing in these guys that will compete. They're going to get chances. And I think Noah Gray is going to get the chance to win the tight end 2 job outright. And whether that's as interesting as Trey Smith beating the odds with the health and becoming the right guard, there's points of contention there, but I think Gray is the guy that I have my eye on at least.
I like that because that is, I would not have gone to Noah Gray, partially because I still don't fully know what I'm looking for, what to fully expect, but it makes me like that call all the more. I do have to think that Blake Bell is probably the guy that ends up being the sort of traditional tight end 2, but I don't think that's a bad thing for Noah Gray either. In fact, I think it might be a good thing to have both of them, because I'm not sure that putting Noah Gray in Blake Bell's shoes for the 2019 team would do any favors to Noah Gray's playing time. You know what I mean? Like, if he can be weaponized, at least in his rookie season, that I think that's probably the best role for him, right?
Yeah, and he's just a better athlete than a guy like Blake Bell, and a guy that runs, I think, not necessarily better routes, but more interesting routes, like routes that you can weaponize is a perfect word for it, where you can, and I hate to keep bringing up Travis Kelce, but you can put him out wide, you can throw him in the slot, be a big slot guy. He can do more, I think, than Blake Bell. Now, can he do it more consistently than Blake Bell? I don't think so right now because he's a rookie and all that good stuff. Hasn't got the grasp of the playbook, but you know what you're going to get with a guy like Blake Bell. You know what you're going to get or not going to get sometimes with a guy like Nick Keiser. I think that's the interesting part about Blake Bell is no one really knows exactly what they're going to do with him yet. People have an idea of what he did in college and what he can do in the pros. And I think that's why I'm so interested to see what he does throughout camp.
Does he have a more, I'm going to say statistically here, just for a bit of a barometer, does he have a more statistically productive year in his rookie campaign than Cornell Powell does?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. Now, if you would have asked me that 2 weeks ago, I think that the answer would have been probably no, because the Chiefs hadn't come out with the I think it was Nate Taylor of The Athletic talked about Mecole Hardman being the number 2 wide receiver. Now, that's a whole nother jar of worms to open up in regards to what's a true X, what's a true number 2 receiver with the Chiefs, have they ever had a true X, stuff like that. But I thought Cornell Powell is a guy that could take over that spot either by the end of the season or next season. But now that Hardman's clearly going to get the opportunity, they're confident in Robinson. It's hard as a rookie to adopt that entire playbook and not only adopt it, but gain a role. Now, special teams has been proven as a method of getting more playing time on offense or defense. If you're a special team stud, you get the buzz going around you. The coaching staff likes you. You might get some more snaps thrown here and there. I don't expect either Powell or Gray to have a standout rookie season. I think they're going to be cogs in the machine rather than key parts. I think the ceiling for Powell is higher this season than Noah Gray, but I also think, man, that's such a tough question. I'm talking myself out of it as I'm kind of going along here. I don't see either one of them getting more than 20, 25 catches. 2 catches a game would be 34, and I don't think either of them will necessarily reach that. I think there will be weeks where Cornell Powell has 3, and then there will be games where Noah Gray doesn't have any for 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's going to be impact or statistics or what it's going to be. But it's a good problem to have when you have Kelsey, Hill, and Mahomes as your starting talent on offense.
Since you touched on this, we'll get you out of here on this one. You mentioned the Mecole Hardman X receiver experiment. What is your sort of loosely your best case, worst case scenario in terms of Mecole Hardman trying to fit a role that he was never really even asked to play last year, unless I've got my facts wrong?
Yeah, it's tough. And someone, I forget who it was, they kind of half roasted me on Twitter because I quote tweeted the report and said, Mecole Hardman isn't an X. He's never going to be an X. And for those listening at home, to be an X, it's the Sammy Watkins role. You have to be able to run routes crisply. You have to have good hands. You have to beat press, get those short and intermediate routes down, and be the reliable receiver. Not to say Tyreek Hill isn't that, but he is the Z or the slot guy that is weaponized in the offense. And Mecole Hardman has taken the role kind of that Tyreek Hill had as a rookie. Now, the difference between their development has been Hill grew out of that quickly and has turned into a bona fide number 1 option for an NFL offense, a top probably 5 receiver. Mecole Hardman hasn't really improved very much. Not that it's a double-edged sword. Does he get the opportunity to? Has he done it? We're going to find out this season whether he has become the route runner the Chiefs need him to be, whether he has the trust in the offense. I think the little gadget plays are still going to be there, but the Chiefs have never been the traditional, this guy plays this spot 100% of the time, this guy's going to be Sammy Watkins 100% of the time. Even Watkins and Hill, who were the predominant outside receivers, they spent plenty of time in the slot. So if Robinson, I think, sees the field a lot, that's going to put Hardman in the slot more often. But if the Chiefs want to use both of them or one or the other on the field without the other one, then maybe Hardman's outside and a guy like Powell can play in the slot or vice versa. It's going to be very interesting. So the fact that he's going to be, I can't remember if the quote was try to replace or attempt to replace the production of or something, makes it seem he's definitely going to be the number 2 receiver no matter what. At least they're going to try to. So he has a very specific skill set thus far. And if he makes those leaps and bounds, then that's going to be great for the Chiefs. They're going to have a bona fide number 2 option. And if not, they're going to have a fun kind of slot vertical threat, which is still valuable, but not quite what people had hoped for when they drafted Hardman.
Okay, very, very last thing here. Tyrann Mathieu just tweeted the phrase "victim of the game." What do you think that means?
I don't know what his tweets like. If he could tweet like the happiest thing and then still be having a rough day or something, or like be upset. So I think people read into his tweets. What was it again?
Victim of the game.
And it wasn't like a quote tweet or anything.
Just,
It was just
no other context whatsoever. Capital V and a period after the E in game. Victim of the game.
Now, worst case scenario is he busts as you know what for the team. He works hard. He plays through injuries. He gets hurt. He comes back. He pours his heart out. He turns around to defense, leads the franchise to the Super Bowl, and now they don't want to pay him what he is worth because it's the NFL. That could be victim of the game, or it could just be, you know, a song lyric or him trolling or something like that. And that's why I think everyone kind of goes crazy when he tweets, because he does it so often. And don't get me wrong, we're both on Twitter quite often. We tweet funny stuff, sarcastic stuff, but his tweets are so cryptic that I just never know.
You don't have his push notifications on, do you?
I used to,
Okay.
because they were motivational, and then they kind of turned sour, so I had to turn them off.
I just was thinking that, because eventually I feel pretty certain he's eventually going to be tweeting about a contract extension that he will be receiving. And I'd like to know that as it's happening. But I also cannot live my every breath wondering when Tyrann Mathieu is going to tweet something cryptic. I support the cryptic tweets, honestly. I'm here for it at this point, because the only other alternative is to let it completely rule your day-to-day life, and that is the thing that I refuse to do, at least for a little while longer. Jordan, thank you as always for making some time for us. Go put those push notifications back on. That's actually not a request; it's an order on behalf of Arrowhead Report.
Actually, while you were speaking, I went and I refollowed and turned on push notifications, so we're good to go.
Please, okay, new order. Don't do that. You can follow him for sure, but you don't need those push notifications on. Talk to you later, Jordan. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Jordan Foote, he's the deputy editor of ArrowheadReport.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at FootNoted. He does all sorts of other great stuff there, spanning other sports. He's really a tremendous Kansas City sports media Twitter follow. He's less cryptic than Tyrann Mathieu, but honestly, Jordan's a quick learner. Maybe he adds that to his Twitter repertoire. To find out, you're going to have to follow him on Twitter at FootNoted.
At JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco
So here's the bet. Beard shaves his beard or I cut off my head.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Quick shout out here. Beard's got a phone call while we were talking to Jordan Foote last segment. It was our friend Brother Patrick. It's been a minute since I've heard from Brother Patrick, and we don't take calls on the show very often, so it just happens. But it's great to hear from him. Glad to hear that Brother Patrick is doing well. He told Beards the following: that he wanted to say that he's 80 years old and that the Big 12 is going to die before he does. It's just so good, man. And also, I agree. Partially because I believe that Brother Patrick will live to be at least 180. He's not even at the halfway point. And also because I think the Big 12 might have until, Monday, the way things are currently looking. So, agreed on both counts, and very glad to hear that Brother Patrick
Baylor's
is
going
doing
to the
well.
Pac-12.
Oh, yeah. It's all going to scatter. We'll talk to Ari Temkin about that in about 30 minutes. But shout out to Brother Patrick. 100 more years to go, minimum.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Hello there. I'm Mark Robbins. ESPN's Courtney Cronin reports the Vikings are letting go assistant coach Rick Dennison for his refusal to receive a COVID-19 vaccination. The Vikings say they're still in conversations with Coach Dennison. A league source tells ESPN Patriots co-offensive line coach Cole Popovich won't be with the team this coming season, and that decision, too, is related to COVID-19 vaccinations. ESPN host Michael Eaves with some thoughts on these vaccinations around the NFL.
You have a choice. You do not have to play, and clearly in Rick Dennison's position, you do not have to coach. But your choices do have consequences. And for Rick Dennison, it's not getting a salary this year as an assistant coach of the Vikings. He could say, all right, let me get the vaccine. I want to coach this year. Or you know what? I'm not comfortable getting the vaccine, and my discomfort is to the level that I'm willing to forego my salary for the upcoming season. But here's what I predict. You're going to see more of this happening.
On to Major League Baseball, Cleveland's going to change its name to the Guardians beginning next season. Right now, trailing Tampa Bay 4-3 is Tampa's newest acquisition, Nelson Cruz, with a home run, and this one for the Rays, his 20th of the season. The Yankees lead the Red Sox 1-0 playing in the 5th at Fenway. San Diego on top of Miami 3-2. Mets making a move off the field, acquiring starting pitcher Rich Hill from Tampa Bay for 2 minor leaguers, and Owen Power, first draft pick selected by Buffalo in the draft, the NHL.
It's Shea Cornette and Monday and Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. We're one day away from the day in Green Bay. We'll tell you if Aaron Rodgers is any closer to showing up for camp. KJZ on Monday on ESPN Radio.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
I'm not asking if anybody went to sleep last night with an empty bottle of liquor under their arm.
Or 12.
With Joshua Brisco.
I'm not asking if anybody else, what? If anybody else went to bed last night sleeping on top of 15 bottles of Fireball.
Actually, it's a waterbed, and instead of water, it's booze, and I just have a straw in it.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
That's not the right music, but it's okay. I mean, you can just play it, Beard. It's fine.
I forgot.
It's going to feel like the end of an hour, when in reality, it's the beginning of an hour. We're just that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Listen, you know what this music won't get us? Copyright flagged on Twitch.
No, it won't.
We're not going to get DMCA'd, because this is actually a unique original creation.
Somebody actually asked one time, I think when it was like near the beginning of the new music and stuff, like, they were like, hey, where do you get this music from? And I was like, you can't.
You can't.
It's ours.
This one is bespoke. Yes, the intro outro music is actually a bespoke, unique piece of rock EDM influenced music made by a friend of mine that got us something shiny, and specifically ours as AES moved to 810.
Do I know this friend?
I don't think so. I don't think you've met.
Okay.
I have a couple friends named Sam. He is one of them. Have you met any of my friends named Sam?
I don't think so.
Didn't think you did. It's great though, and honestly, I will also say, like, it has now been the intro outro music for, God, how long have we been down here, Beards?
Since 2019.
I say
beginning of 2019.
2.5 years of AES on 810. Is that right?
Yeah.
Holy bleep! Yeah, I guess you're right. It really is. So I mean, we have played that for, like, let's see, 2.5 years. We're gonna say we average something like 3.5, 4 shows a week because you have to deal with football. I don't know. Whatever the math is. We've heard that song a lot of times, and I'm still not sick of it. I still legitimately like it, which is nice because that's a tough needle to thread. But yeah, you can't. If you want the music, you can't have it. Shout out to the Twitch one more time. Also, Chaotic Warrior said, excellent as always, Jordan. Josh, you were okay too. I will sign up for okay, especially in an interview. You know, if they get, here's the thing. First of all, I will settle for okay in most circumstances. But particularly in an interview, if you think the guest does a great job, then I have done my job. I'm in the shadows, moving around, pulling puppet strings and stuff. I'm starting conference realignment. But you don't know what I'm doing until it's too late. Where's West Virginia going? ACC makes a lot of sense, right? I saw like one tweet. All of this is conjecture at this point, but I saw one tweet about Virginia Tech and the Pac-12.
Oh, it would be amazing.
And it's just because it would be, there might be another one that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but it feels like it would have to be the most geographically ridiculous conference match in college sports, right? Like, think about Arizona State being in the same conference as West Virginia. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. But you know what? That would be a great home court advantage where they've got to drive or fly out to you
Probably fly.
every time.
I would think probably fly.
I would hope so. That's a long drive.
It's a long drive. But it would also be an equally bad road disadvantage. Like both teams would, or in any given week, would have a significant home field advantage. Whoever it is that's at home, because you either have to drag yourself to West Virginia, or West Virginia has to drag themselves to Arizona State, to Oregon.
Oh gosh,
the Oregon-West Virginia road trip is a lengthy one. If I'm looking at a map right now with some teams. So if you wanted to totally, and I'll give a shout out to Nick Weipert on Twitter. I've worked with him on a handful of things over the last few years, but I don't think we've ever referenced him on the show. It's good work at N Weipert. If you want to look at his map here, he's just sort of proposing divisions and also getting yourself 4 16-team conferences. So this one ends with the heat death of the Big 12, or at least they become a group of 6 schoolers. I don't know. Big 12 is not here. The Big 12 loses its remaining 8 teams. 6. Well, hold on. Am I missing?
Little 8.
No. This map empties out the Big 12. So this is taking the Big 12 down to the studs or whatever. Is that the expression? Brass tacks.
Something like that.
So KU and Iowa State could go to the Big 10. Iowa State is good enough at football to hang there, and if KU stinks in the Big 10, fine. Maybe they get Rutgers every once in a while, though, and they can try to get themselves a dub, but that's fine. But then you also have Big 10 basketball getting a little bit of an infusion there. Like that all works out. I think that makes a lot of sense, and also I think there have been reports that KU and Iowa State have both contacted the Big 10 as a sort of contingency plan. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Isn't Michigan State in the Big 10?
Yes.
I don't want to see Tom Izzo every year. That does not sound good to me.
You just because you just think he's ugly.
Sure. Yes.
Oh, okay. You meant in basketball.
Yes.
I see what you meant.
Yes.
Yeah, but also think about KU football getting a dub over Harbaugh. Like that would be pretty in the Michigan side of things, not State, but Michigan,
Man, that would
UM.
Be hilarious.
It'd be very funny. But so he
might actually get fired at that point.
Oh wow, would that be it?
Yes.
I mean, losing to KU football is sort of it, right?
Yeah.
But with Lance Leipold, it's gonna suck less for sure. I think, right?
Less controversy.
I was trying to see if there was anything a play on words with the word less, and I as I pushed through it, it got worse. So I'm just gonna acknowledge that there's probably a joke in there somewhere. But I'm not going to. I mean, there definitely is, and I have one that I'm not going to make. OU and Texas obviously go to the SEC, and then now Nick is bringing Notre Dame to the ACC permanently as like to get them to 16 teams, which then also includes West Virginia. The place where all of that math ends up working out is that now the Pac-12 becomes the Pac-16 with everybody else, right? With Texas Tech and Baylor, they get a Texas presence. Seems reasonable. Like the Pac-12 might want that. And also, Texas isn't West Virginia in terms of geographical nonsense. And then they would also be able to take K-State and Oklahoma State, which expands the entire map a little more central, but no more than the new look Big Ten would be, and no more than the SEC really would be. I mean, those states all actually connect, but the SEC is getting all the way into Texas. They were with A&M. They would continue to with the Longhorns, obviously. The Pac-12 does become a bit of a catch-all in this one, and again, this is not guaranteed to be happening at all. I don't know what the Big 12's move is going to be, or what these individual teams are going to do. But if you are any of these other conferences, like, look, I'm not here to try to start a fight with any K-State or KU fans, honestly. But like, here's how I'll make it even. KU and K-State do not have the cachet to make moves like this for their own good. They did not have the option to go to the SEC. OU and Texas, because of OU and Texas football, are the movers and shakers here. They are the two Jenga blocks that might take the entire tower with them. That is unique to OU and Texas's power. KU doesn't have that, and K-State doesn't have that. But if you're K-State, you should be praying that the Pac-12 wants to expand to 16 and just take all of the little sort of the little lost teams that are floating around the flies around the corpse of the Big 12, because the Pac-12 then can expand into a super conference in their own right. And I think KU and Iowa State makes enough sense in the Big Ten. Now, the thing that KU fans need to remember here is that your basketball team is not the selling point that it feels like to you. KU basketball has been so dominant in the Big 12 for so long. Obviously, they finally eventually did not win the conference and ended up being second behind Baylor this year. But over the grand scheme of things, over the last decade and couple decades, dozen years, whatever, KU is an absolutely unstoppable force in terms of Big 12 basketball. I think to some extent that has led to there being a little bit of an overinflated ego among KU basketball fans, because you go, well, yeah, OU and Texas has football, but our basketball team is like, we're like the OU of basketball. Sure, but it doesn't really matter, because you don't have the money of OU football or Texas football. Even as Texas football is not #back and is a inferior competitive product to KU basketball at this point, football is where the money is. Like, there have been some reports about where the money is going to come from in terms of making all of this work, and like ESPN is going to be a huge chunk of that. They've got SEC rights, they've got all of they are spending so much money on sports rights and TV deals right now. That's for football. March Madness is great. Whenever March Madness is around, fantastic. But regular season college basketball does not exist in the same stratosphere as regular season college football. It's just not even close. And that's an easier thing to do, I think, whenever you start comparing it to how we talk about other sports. Regular season NFL football is a different animal than any other regular season sports other than college football is the closest comparison in America. Now you're thinking, well, but it's all college, right? No. Whenever you think about all college, because you would never say, well, college, we got a great college baseball team. K-State's got good college baseball, right? I think, maybe, I don't know. Why didn't the Pac-12 want us for a baseball team? Because your baseball team is not your basketball team, and your basketball team is nowhere near where the football money is. That's the biggest thing at this point that I just think most people around here may not understand, because we haven't had a whole lot of Mizzou fans notwithstanding. You guys you're at home in the SEC. You guys are fine. But for KU and to some extent K-State, for KU, football season ends whenever late night happens, basically, right?
Before that.
And maybe before. But it's
Halftime
sort
of
of
the game, first game.
Royals season ends around here whenever training camp starts. Like today is the last Royals game of the season in my book. I tune into Boulevard Baseball tonight, tomorrow at 5. I'll be hosting. So tomorrow, I guess, is my last one. Veterans aren't in yet. Veterans haven't reported yet. Beards, don't mark that. Once veterans report the training camp, baseball season is over. For KU, it's basketball does that to the football team. But that's not where the money's at. It's how your fandom works, and it's how KU from a competitive point of view works. But it's not how the rest of the college sports world views you. I think that is as well as I can explain it.
Even if there's like the chance that KU basketball comes close to the just like proportional idea of like Texas and Oklahoma football, the difference is that Texas and Oklahoma have competitive basketball teams, and KU football has KU football.
Right, but even then, like, again, I understand that from a fan logic 100%, but the SEC would rather have a literal...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Literally bring in OU and Texas and tell them to close their basketball team.
Yes.
And just bring football. But from a competitive standpoint, like, it would all be fun. I don't know. This might be my... You know what, Beards? Let me ask you. I'm going to ask you this question directly.
Okay.
I try not to ask you direct questions because interviewing you is not the radio show that I want to do.
But here we are.
But Rudy's gone. It's a Friday, and our next guest isn't for 10 minutes. As a KU fan, do you care about the Big 12 as an institution that is worth holding together? Would you rather see KU go to the Big 10 and play other blue blood teams that you know, or stay in a Big 8 so they can play Oklahoma State and K-State and Baylor and Texas Tech 17 straight times?
I mean, at this point, it kind of feels like that's not going to happen anyway, because, well, just the memory of that will be different either way.
Sure.
Because Texas and Oklahoma have been big parts. I primarily am a basketball fan. I don't care about college football basically at all.
As I mentioned, you're a KU fan, so that makes sense.
And having those teams that have been big parts of Big 12 basketball history, with Kevin Durant and Blake Griffin and Buddy Hield and Trae Young and all of these kind of guys, and have those teams just gone now, and now you're just left with 8, and it's like, well, okay, there's Baylor, okay,
Right.
Hi Baylor, that's one game, so
you get to keep your Sunflower Showdown.
yeah, but
you get
at
Texas
the same
Tech.
time that kind of dies. And then the idea of going to the Big Ten or whatever, and then just being the new kids on the block.
Yeah.
And then being oh, hey, we're not the just stranglehold that we have anymore. It's like I said, I don't want to see Tom Izzo however many times a year, because Michigan State's usually really good.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just that level of being the new kid and being oh man, over here back at my old school, it was so awesome. I was the king of the hill.
Right.
And then the first day, you just walk in and this bully wearing green just goes, whap! And then that's it.
You
And then
definitely
you're-
have to beat up the biggest kid at school day one.
Yes.
You cannot lose that first game to Michigan State.
No.
I think that's true. I think that would be weird. That's definitely the case. But you can either be, listen, Beards, I am uniquely qualified, believe it or not.
Qualified in what regard?
I am uniquely qualified to talk about being the cool kid at the small school. At a homeschool high school that met twice a week. That's basically, I was, and I'm giving myself too much credit here, but for the sake of the analogy, I'm going to go ahead and use it. I was Kansas in a Big 8. Couple good teams in there. But I was feeling like some hot bleep. Then you take me out of there and you make me go play in the Big 10. I get beat up by Tom Izzo day one. I do kind of like that being the framing of the choice from the KU, at least basketball competitive standpoint.
Now, there is also the chance, competitively, that could be awesome to have.
That's where I'm
Michigan
at.
State and Michigan and Ohio State's Big Ten.
Yep.
And Ohio State and some really good teams.
Penn State, Maryland.
Yeah, and you're not dealing with
Wisconsin,
TCU.
Purdue.
And you're not dealing with TCU or somebody like that.
Yeah. Those Texas Tech games without Chris Beard probably get a little less interesting. Baylor is an incredible story. It's a relatively recent rise to total greatness.
There were some great West Virginia teams, but also they're not that way as much anymore.
Yeah. That as more of a neutral observer that watches KU games as, host on the radio of your home of Kansas athletics, I'm very down for KU versus you still get Iowa State, you get Nebraska, you get Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Northwestern, Purdue.
Oh yeah.
Michigan State, Wisconsin, Ohio State. I skipped a few teams there that aren't as interesting, but you're going
There's
to get
a lot
some
in there,
good
though. There's
basketball.
Some that I forgot about.
Yeah. Especially the Indianas and Purdue's. I mean, that's for me. And again, this is overlooking football, which is not what I want to be doing because that's not where the money is. But from a KU basketball standpoint, the idea of getting to you get some historically excellent basketball programs to line up against. 10 times, 10 of these 16 teams in your conference have historically relevant basketball teams in your conference play. That's fun. I can get down with that. But I'm also, I'm not afraid of Tom Izzo because I'm not a KU fan. I am not emotionally that invested in KU versus K-State or KU versus Oklahoma State or whatever.
It'll be weird for the familiarity to vanish is the big thing, I think.
Sure.
When that happens. Because, like I said, you had all these teams that you've played and have had big history with. Like, Texas was one of the few teams recently to beat KU at home. And, like, I still remember that, like, 5 years later or whenever that was, watching over at my aunt's house upstairs.
You have anything else from your aunt's house
No.
watching that game? Any other sort of strangely specific memories? I love a strangely specific memory. It sounds like the answer might be no.
No, the answer is no there.
I was trying to pull up the some of the conference shuffling that the Big 12 has gone through already, because I think once you go through that cycle once, or at the very least, once you've gone through it long enough ago. So Colorado and Nebraska left in 2011, and then Mizzou and A&M left in 12. After all four of them joined in 1996. I have obviously zero memory of the Big 8 at any point. And I don't really think it's weird that Colorado or Nebraska or A&M aren't Big 12 teams anymore. I feel it a little bit for Mizzou, which I think is probably what I would end up feeling for K-State.
But yeah, that's also part of the thing where it's like you're going to know that because it's KU area.
That is very specifically geographical. Right. I don't really care
not being
about...
a Texas fan is what I mean there. Feeling Mizzou leave.
Right, sure. Yeah. I don't lose any sleep over Colorado, Nebraska, or A&M. Again, I would love it if Mizzou and KU and K-State and the Wichita State all played more. The geographic connections are all fun.
Now, one thing I was going to say, though, if this all does die and KU goes to the Big 10.
If the Big 12 dies,
if the Big 12 dies and KU goes to the Big 10 or whatever. I mean, there's already been some kind of movement to a Mizzou rematch reunion kind of thing.
Yeah. There's some stuff scheduled for that, yeah.
Yeah, but that could open the door for more often. Because then it's not, they left the Big 12, screw them. Now there is no Big 12. Hey, Mizzou, you want to come get your butt whooped?
Oh, you're talking about basketball.
Yes. KU doesn't play football, you know this.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's kind of interesting. Would there be a little bit less vitriol if KU was in the Big 10, Mizzou's in the SEC, and you're not it's not the Big 12. If you're the Big 12, you're not saying you left us, you made us sad. And if you're Mizzou, you're not saying we're not going to help you out. You're the Big 12. We left you guys. You might just have two teams in conferences that want to play some non-con games against each other for geographical reasons. That'd be kind of fun. I'd be down for that. I keep looking at this map. And the idea of just what would have to happen to the map if West Virginia ended up in the Pac-12 is just genuinely, they would be the first, I guess, bi-coastal conference, right? Or at least of the major ones. I don't know, maybe there's somebody small that I'm not thinking of. But, the SEC, you're going to get your Texas and your Florida, but they're all clumped together. West Virginia would essentially be
10 hours, probably.
West Virginia would be landlocked from the rest of the Pac-12.
Yes.
There would not be a direct path there because you would need Missouri and Virginia or something. That's all kind of funny. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a break. Beards and I just talked about conference realignment for 20 minutes. We'll do it with a much more qualified person and a much more interesting way with Ari Temkin whenever we come back here on Sports Radio 810.
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
The two biggest detriments to me ever having like an actual radio career, I think, or I have three greatest detriments. Number one, I have a bad memory. Number two, I'm easily distracted. And number three, I'm not good at radio.
With Joshua Brisco.
Also, he's not that likable.
I was going to say that next, actually. Yeah. I was going to say also, I'm not very likable.
You have a squeaky voice for radio.
Right, I do. I have a bad radio voice.
You have a girly laugh.
I definitely have a very girly laugh. I alienate people.
People don't like hipsters.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
We've talked a little bit about realignment during the break. I was trying to realign my spine. I got to get some lumbar support in this chair or something. I got to do something, man, because my posture keeps getting worse, and I keep just slouching more because it hurts less when I do that. I don't know. I got to figure out some sort of alternative to get a little extra posture fixing, a little realignment for myself.
Just grab one
here.
of the chairs out of Ben's office like I do.
I don't think that's going to do it for me, honestly. And also, it's a longer drive for me to roll this chair out and that one all the way in. It's easy for you to steal Ben's chair. For me, it's a whole undertaking. Maybe I can get a little bit of a tip from a true radio professional as Ari Temkin joins us now. You can follow him on Twitter at Ari Sports. That's A-R-I Sports. And you can hear him on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. You can hear him on Sirius XM's Big 12 radio. And Ari, I got to ask, first of all, what's the rebranding going to be for Big 12 radio? How you doing right now? You good?
A little young for back problems, Josh.
It's the radio, man. It's just, and I've got all sorts of issues. The back problems are the least of my worries.
That's true. You do have many issues.
Many.
Yeah, I've been very fearful for my job at a radio station this week. Yeah. In addition to my alma mater as well, and where we're going to end up with the University of Kansas. So yeah, it's been a nightmarish week for sure. And look, I mean, I live in Dallas, and I'm in good contact with all of the folks that work at the Big 12 in Irving, Texas, which is, in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And so, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that obviously there's a lot of people that behind the scenes are working and have jobs on a full-time basis that, work in this conference that, it's one of those things, I guess a lot of people don't think about. But, yeah. I think, it's really interesting, Josh. I've taken this perspective on it. On Tuesday, we watched a small market team with a superstar that never left won an NBA championship. Mm-hmm. And on Wednesday, we celebrated him for that. Mm-hmm. And, it's an era of super teams. He was the antidote. Giannis was the antidote to that in modern sports. And we celebrated that. And, it's kind of funny that this week ends with a super league forming. And so I think, as maybe bleak as it looks for the conference right now, that they're going to fight back in a quote-unquote small market type way against the big behemoth that is the SEC right now and the Super League that has engulfed all of college sports.
The Super League I think is a good comparison because there is we were talking about this last segment, but there is a path to a Power Four essentially that does sort of look like a Super League where you get a bunch of leagues with 16 teams and all of that. And I'm curious about a whole bunch of things, but I want to go a little bit chronologically, I guess, because again, literally you're on Big 12 radio, and whenever the news came around that Texas and Oklahoma were really, really serious about trying to make this move to the SEC, and then we find out how quickly it moved in the day after that it clearly was not a new idea. This did not leak towards the beginning of the process. How surprised were you, and how surprised was the Big 12 to end up getting that news?
I was shocked. All of my sources inside the Big 12 say that they didn't know this was happening. I find that hard to believe. I'll tell you why. A few months ago, it was leaked. It wasn't just leaked. I mean, Texas Tech's president came out and said that it happened. That the Big 12 had hired a consultant to reach out to its media partners at ESPN and Fox and basically try to get a deal worked out through 2030. Texas Tech's president said that it happened. They were rebuffed. Basically, they went to the network and said, "Hey, we'll do a discount, but we want long-term security. We want to be locked up to 2030." And they said, "No, we'll play this thing to 2025 and then renegotiate around that time." And my guess is they were doing that in part to create the long-term viability. They knew that something like this could happen. Did they know in particular Oklahoma and Texas would be looking at getting out? No. Because I do think that at that time, that might have been the start of this for the University of Texas. Texas started this thing. Big Bad Texas has started this thing, and I think Oklahoma realized they had no future in the Big 12 without Texas, and so they followed suit. But I do think that the Big 12 was worried about its long-term viability. I don't think they were caught by surprise. I certainly was. And again, my sources inside the Big 12 didn't give me any information in terms of how surprised they were.
Could the Big 12 have handled this differently to have avoided this, or was this a foregone conclusion that eventually Texas was going to leave?
Okay, let's go back to the super teams. So LeBron James was on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and for him to go back to Cleveland, he had to have all of the power. He was the general manager of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So he was able to hire coaches, and he brought in his buddies to play with him. And the issue with that, Josh, is when things go wrong, the organization can't say, "But you were in charge. This is your responsibility," right? LeBron, in that case, is not going to be introspective enough to admit that he's made the mistake. He's going to put the blame elsewhere. It's the same thing that James Harden did, really, with the Rockets too. Okay, so let's go back 10 years now.
Yeah.
When the league almost blew up. And the reason it didn't is because the Big 12 gave Texas and Oklahoma all of the power. The thing that I've noticed about the way that the Big 12 is situated relative to other conferences is other conferences have more centralized power. The Big 12 doesn't. They admittedly work at the request of the member institutions. That's the super team thing, right? Yeah. And so when you give them the power and things go wrong, they're not going to blame themselves. They're going to blame you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here.
So what can they do next then? If the power brokers of the conference go, I mean, we've seen some reports about teams, the KU and Iowa State making calls with the Big Ten, or teams having contingency plans. The Big 12 having the meeting where apparently option one is to try to keep the Big 12 together, but it sounds like every team is sort of. You correct me if I'm wrong on this. My hunch is that every team at the meeting is saying, no, let's keep this thing together, while they're all sort of planning their solo careers as soon as they leave that room. What is your read on that in terms of what comes next?
Yeah, I think you perfectly characterized it, Josh. I mean, it's everybody's together until it gets in the way of everybody's own self-interest. I'm curious what the play here is from Bob Bowlesby, because, look, I mean, the obvious piece is the American Athletic Conference. And Cincinnati and Memphis and SMU and Houston and Tulsa. And, if they added value to this conference, they'd be in this conference. So the fact remains they're not in this conference because they didn't add value, and they don't suddenly add value because you've lost the two most important pieces to this conference. So, it's take two of my best things and replace it with 4 or 5 average things.
Right.
And that doesn't add up to your 2 best things. If I am my alma mater, for instance, if I'm Kansas, I am listening to what the plan is. But if Bob Bowlesby comes back and says, the plan is we're going to add Cincinnati and Houston and SMU and Memphis, and I'm out. I am out. I'm Pac-12, ACC, Big Ten. Who wants me? That's what I'm doing, because this is a arms race, and the SEC is going to hand out 60, maybe 70. Who knows what their TV contract will be with the additions of Oklahoma and Texas? Maybe $70 million per team per year. To put that in perspective, the Big 12 was third this year with money handed out from its television partners at around $36 million. So that adds up and compounds every single year. And if they're getting $36 million now with Texas and Oklahoma, what is it with Tulsa and Houston and SMU replacing them?
Yeah.
It ain't 36. And we know, I mean, money helps. Money is helping many of these programs in the SEC become premier programs. It's the reason the SEC recruits on a different level of everybody else. So you can't be losing 2-1 from a money standpoint to this big bag conference without a fight. You've got to go look for your best route. Now here's the part where I try to save the Big 12. And that is that we've got brand new leaders of the ACC and the Pac-12. They're also in trouble. Well, they're not losing their best brands, but they're in trouble because the Pac-12's already been. I mean, the Pac-12 is 5th of the Power Fives in their money that they get from their television contract. They've got a bad TV deal. It's almost up, but they have an even worse network, and that's what George Kliavkoff, the new commissioner, is tasked with. The ACC, meanwhile, has a really bad TV deal that's not up until 2036. And they locked that thing in with ESPN so they can get their own network. But they're 4th. So they're falling behind even more. And this is an arms race. So none of these 3 conferences can stand pat. If there's only going to be 4 conferences left, the Big 12 certainly looks like the one most on the brink, but they also have the most, the best leadership. The only leadership of these 3, Kliavkoff and Phillips, that have negotiated a television deal. So, if I'm the Big 12 and I'm Bob Bowlesby, I am trying to pillage the ACC or the Pac-12 because their futures are as bleak as the Big 12's because they're also losing money year after year after year, 2-1 to the SEC.
What an interesting, Game of Thrones twist that it has to be trying to happen behind closed doors right now. That is, because I was going to try to figure out, all right, so what is the plan for the Big 12 if adding, like you said, Houston and Carolina or whatever, or Cincinnati, if that's not going to be enough to move the needle, which I agree, I don't know. If it would have moved the needle, they could have been in the Big 12 already.
You just called it Carolina, Josh.
I did.
Think about how little that moves the needle.
That's really bad.
It's a great Freudian slip, right? It's like the perfect Freudian slip,
it's the C, the team that starts with the C, yeah.
It is totally Game of Thrones too.
Houston's logo literally goes ugh, it's ugh. That's their logo is UH intersecting. Yeah, of course. Because you're right. If they would have been really helpful to the Big 12. The Big 12 could have gotten 12 teams back and tried to poach them sooner. So the funny thing that with what you're laying out there that I honestly had no idea of, that really the Big 12 by a lot of metrics would have been the next best option for the non-SEC caliber teams, but they're losing 2 teams, so they're the ones that do look like the injured elephant at the back of the pack that's about to get picked off. How realistic do you think it is that Bob Bowlesby and the guys you mentioned that have done some TV contracts and all of that are right now trying to poach somebody from these other conferences? And is there any inkling for you of who it might be that they could be realistically targeting right now?
Yeah, I mean, from a Pac-12 perspective, there's been some talk about, well, what about Arizona or Arizona State? Could you poach the Arizona schools? There was a report that came out today too that the Pac-12 and the Big 12 were talking about merging, and it's like, yeah, but somebody wins there. At the end of the day, there's 2 different conferences, and so if 2 becomes 1, then which conference is it?
Yeah. The Big Pac.
So, look, but where's the office? Is it in?
Yeah.
They're going to move from Northern California now, I think, to Vegas, which is a good move for the Pac-12's headquarters. But is it in Irving, Dallas, or is it in? one conference. It's a Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. There's backstabbing. There is, I mean, it's a House of Cards. It's Game of Thrones. It is exactly some of our favorite television shows because there's backroom deals going on in the front end of it. You're trying to make peace with your current conference and try to keep the cohesion. You know, it does seem unrealistic for the Big 12 to be able to pull in current current ACC or Pac-12 members, you know, given, hey, if I'm in the ACC, why would I want to leave? But again, I think if you look at this realistically, you know that you need movement from an ACC perspective too, and from a Pac-12 perspective too. You can't stand pat. You know, the money doesn't lie here, and that's what everybody knows, and that's the reason that this move is happening for Oklahoma and Texas. So, I mean, you know, I definitely look at this a lot more pessimistically, which sucks for me, you know, and my employment working at SiriusXM, the Big 12 channel. But I will say, don't underestimate Bob Bowlesby in the Big 12. You know, I don't think that they were as caught with their pants down here as everybody seems to think they are. As I kind of laid out, this was a conference controlled by Texas and Oklahoma, and then they're mad at the Big 12 when Big 12 isn't in control. Well, I mean, that's because that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would be surprised if Bob Bowlesby came back with, we tried to poach conference schools from the AAC. And look, and even if that is the case, it's clearly the fifth of the Power Five, but a Power Five nonetheless, I think. And at the end of the day, that's also important here.
Okay, so I have a few more things. One of them is very procedural that I just need an adult to tell me the right answer for. When does Oklahoma and Texas start playing games in the SEC? Like, when is that actually happening as things currently stand?
So, Game of Thrones here, Oklahoma and Texas are waiting for the Big 12 to disappear. Because they owe, at a minimum, because of the grant of rights, they owe basically the league, their pay for a year. So $36 million plus $36 million for each program, right? So you do the math there. That's what they would owe. Okay, so that's. I mean, it's the University of Texas. They have an infinite amount of money. Literally, they can at any point in time bring any of their amount of boosters together and say, we need $70 million or $150 million, and they'll get it. Like, that money's of no object to them. What I do think is part of their grant of rights is they don't own their rights until after it's up. Meaning they can't go collect television money from the SEC until 2025. And so that's the bigger piece here. They are probably going to try to come to some sort of a buyout where they can then own their rights, get their rights back, be able to cash in that money right away from an SEC perspective, or they hope that the Big 12 will dissolve so it all goes away, poof, or they'll wait it out and make it as awkward as they possibly can.
That's awkward is exactly the right word, I think, because it's like whenever you say goodbye to somebody and then you walk the same direction, but then you walk the same direction until 2025. It's like, yeah, that is an awkward one.
And also you want to kill that person.
Right. You just had a fist fight and then started walking the same direction to your car for 4 more years. If the Big 12 does end up at a point where clearly, like, they are, if it's the Jenga Tower and Texas and OU were the blocks that got pulled, what's the best case scenario specifically for Kansas in your mind?
I would say the Big 10.
Yeah.
Or the ACC. And I would like to believe, as a KU homer, that we are Power 5 material, despite our football program being, FCS material.
Right.
And I'd like to think they are. And I mean, if not to the Big 10, certainly to the ACC, which has, an incredible basketball conference.
Yeah.
But maybe it would be staying in the Big 10 the Big 12, because let's say they go the AAC route and they add, a Cincinnati or a SMU. I mean, these are decent basketball programs. By the way, Iowa State has historically had a pretty good basketball program. Baylor just won a national championship. Texas Tech still pretty good with Mark Adams taking over from Chris Beard. They've done well in their the transfer portal. Like, maybe that is better for Kansas. You're at the lesser of the Power Fives, and your football team's not going to be as bad. It's only going to get better, and you're playing in a more basketball-centric conference. So maybe there's really no path that's bad for Kansas.
If the Big 12 does end up basically going nuclear, who is that the worst for? Like, who is left going and they're the team calling the AAC asking if they've got a room?
So I certainly think that the two religious schools are in a bad situation. This happened 10 years ago with the Pac-12. They weren't going to take Baylor.
Yeah.
The Pac-12 was not going to take Baylor because of the religious component of it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, so the Pac-12's out for them. So are they a fit in the Big Ten or the AC? I mean, I think Baylor. You look at Baylor with Matt Rule a couple of years ago in football was a close game. I mean, I was at the Big 12 championship against Baylor against Oklahoma a couple of years ago. I mean, think about how close that game was, and then they win a national championship in basketball. I mean, they're probably in the worst position, unfortunately, because that's an incredible athletic department. They've done incredible work. But yeah, I'm curious to see what happened to Baylor. You could say TCU too, but like TCU's kind of got some house money here because they just got here.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all, I suppose.
I can't think of a better way to let you go than on that, because that's just it's downright beautiful, and I feel like that's the energy we should all take into our weekend. All right, thank you very much for making some time for us tonight. I genuinely hope that as the Big 12 holds it together, that the Big 12 channel on SiriusXM also holds together, and if people just need, they need some Big 12 takes or opinions or thought processes, or just want to know what you're doing, at Ari Sports on Twitter, and you're going to get some Cowboys stuff mixed in. Ari can't help that, unfortunately. I don't think we can avoid that, right? We're just...
We'll see you in the Super Bowl, Josh.
Yeah, well, Chiefs Cowboys Super Bowl the same year that Texas and Oklahoma finally get to take the different side of the sidewalk in 2025. Thank you, Ari.
I love you, buddy. Be well.
Love Ari Temkin, man. We're gonna. Hopefully, it's not to talk about the death of the Big 12, but we're gonna have Ari back again sometime soon. I forget how good it is to talk to Ari. Really like him. Again, at Ari Sports on Twitter for all of the Big 12 stuff. I also really do hope that the whole Big 12 SiriusXM channel sticks around, because I've thought about that. I didn't really mean to have Ari come on and sort of talk about perhaps eulogizing the conference that he is paid to cover.
Hey, Ari, you gonna have a job in a year?
Somebody at SiriusXM's got to give him a job talking about the Big Ten or something, right? Like, that seems right. SEC's in Texas already. Pay Ari Temkin. Don't just follow him on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter and pay him money to talk about your favorite teams, just in case this whole Big 12 thing doesn't actually pan out.
Take the show with you wherever you go. Listen live on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app and 810WHB.com. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
What's the lapel hole called?
Buttonhole.
The buttonhole. I could absolutely pop that into the buttonhole. Beards just told me to be careful on the word buttonhole. Yeah, good call, Beards. Thank you. You're a good producer.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It's just a weird Friday show. We got guests at slightly weird times. Rudy's not here. It's Friday. We did some Chief stuff. We've done some Big 12 stuff. And some Beards is just dipping in.
Serious topics.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, we did an hour of Chiefs and an hour of conference realignment. But in the middle of it all, Beards is dusting off some liners you haven't heard in a little while. That's all. You know what I used today, Beards?
The toilet?
I mean, yes, but not specific. You know what I used for the first time today, Beards?
The toilet?
No, also not that. I'm glad that was a joke that you made.
What did you use for the first time today, Josh?
I need you to guess your best guess. It's not totally out of left field. There is a connection point here that I think you're going to realize it once I get it there. Can I give you a hint?
Yes, I want a hint.
Okay, close your eyes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, shh. That is air flowing through some very aerodynamic nostrils.
Ah.
Use the Manscaped nose trimmer today. Not the no, nose hair trimmer. My nose is not,
What did you say first?
Nose trimmer. And my nose is not trimmed. I did not trim my nose. That would be a bad product that I don't think I would want.
I have not used mine yet. I did though. I did. When we went home that night after. No.
I'm out. And for that reason, I'm out. Thank you, Paige. I'm taking off my headphones.
After we unboxed everything, I went home and I showed Rebecca the cologne.
Yeah.
It has the wife approval.
It smells good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just took a big spray of it in the air and walked through it and went, okay, you're wearing that a lot now.
Wow. So this wasn't just like, this is fine.
Oh, no.
This was like, hey, you're wearing this all the time.
Yeah, basically.
That's good. And I'm glad for it because I don't know what the comparison is in terms of amount of time, but I hopefully don't smell you as much as your new wife does, but I still smell you plenty. And I would like it to be pleasant as often as possible.
Our office is kind of small.
It is a very small office, especially when all three of us are in there.
But we have made it our own.
We have, and I think honestly, maybe we just need to have at least one bottle of the Manscaped cologne that we just leave in there whenever it gets a little stinky.
It's just the air freshener.
We just because then all of a sudden we go from the worst to the best smelling office in the building.
Also, those walls are padded. That's going to absorb the smell. It's going to keep it there forever. It's going to smell great.
Almost, Manscaped.com promo code ALMOST, by the way. 20% off and free shipping for anything from Manscaped.
Still need underwear.
They sponsor our podcast specifically, but they send us free stuff, so we talk about it. Because one of my golden rules is if you send me something for free, I will talk about it on the radio.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Hello there. I'm Mark Robbins. Big League Baseball tonight. The Nelson Cruz trade from Minnesota to Tampa Bay on Thursday, paying off right away for the Rays. Tonight, Cruz with a solo homer, his 20th of the season. The Rays and Cleveland tied at 4 in the 8th, and soon it won't be the Cleveland Indians much longer. In fact, Cleveland announcing today its new nickname will be the Guardians beginning in 2022. Elsewhere on the scoreboard, Rafi Devers with a 2-run home run off Garrett Cole. The Red Sox at home leading in the bottom of the 7th over the Yankees 3-1. Mets shutting out Toronto 3-0 in the 9th. Baltimore leading Washington 6-1. They're in the 8th there. And in the 8th in Miami, Padres lead the Marlins 3-2. The NHL draft's going on right now on ESPN2. It all began when Buffalo made the first selection.
On behalf of the Buffalo Sabres and all of our great fans, we are proud to select from the University of Michigan, Owen Power.
Kevin Adams, the Buffalo general manager, making the selection. Powers is 6'6" defenseman from the Wolverines, who had 3 of the first 5 selections in this draft. ESPN's Courtney Cronin reports the Vikings are letting go assistant coach Rick Dennison after he refused to receive a COVID-19 vaccination. The Vikes say, though, they're still in conversations with Dennison. The league source also tells ESPN the Patriots will not be having offensive line coach Cole Popovich this season with them. It's also related to COVID-19 vaccinations.
It's Shea Cornette Monday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin. Why one second-year quarterback is being compared to a 3-time MVP. That's Monday on KJZ and on ESPN Radio.
You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
I kind of want to talk about that Dwight Howard story that might not be a real thing at all. I just want to talk about the responses to that whole thing.
So that one we're going to wait for. That one we are waiting for.
That one we're going to kick down? Is that just because we don't know if any of it's based in anything?
Yes.
So for me, what I want to talk about isn't even about Dwight Howard at all. It's about how people responded to a story that might not be real.
With Joshua Brisco.
All right, Beards, you pick. Do you want to talk about the Dwight Howard story or how Reuben Foster keeps getting jobs while Colin Kaepernick does not?
Let's talk about baseball!
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Last hour of Almost Entirely Sports of the week, although in about 13 hours from now, I will be starting an edition of Sports Saturday tomorrow morning and baseball tonight, tomorrow afternoon. I'll be in St. Joe on Sunday, so I am not necessarily in the headspace of ladies and gentlemen the weekend. But if you are, I'm very happy for you. As I've told Beard several times, it's sort of a weird show today, sort of a weird schedule. Rudy's out. And so I told Beard this last hour could either be that liner you just heard, or it could be I'm standing right now for the start of a segment. I haven't done that in a really long time. I don't even know. Did you reframe it for Twitch, or is Twitch currently staring at my nipples?
I reframed it. Don't worry.
Okay. Whatever works. Should I unbutton a button for the late night Twitch crowd?
I mean, it's 9 o'clock. Do whatever.
There's no terms of service violation here. Look at this chest hair. We just told you about the wonders of Manscaped,
Where's the hot tub?
But I'm keeping some of it. Can we get a hot tub in here?
Bathtub party day's coming up.
It is, in fact,
until December, but still.
I think it's on a Chiefs game day this year.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, so I'll double check. Do you have big plans you're gonna have to reschedule now?
I don't know, but I think I still have it in my calendar.
I definitely do, because I was scheduling some vacation days this last week.
December 5th.
At the Broncos at Chiefs at noon. Gonna be a little chilly, but we can bring a bathtub in the studio for the post-game show or something.
Yeah.
I have our separate tubs in our separate rooms. I think that works. Also, shout out to Farrelly on Twitch. They subscribe with their Prime to the Sports Radio 810 Twitch channel. Thank you, Farrelly. Beards, do you want...
Also, Jayhawks fan also subscribed with Prime.
Thank you, Jayhawks fan. Sorry I missed that.
I think you resubscribed.
Well, thank you to all of you who have thrown money at us on Twitch. I will unbutton a button because you guys, you threw money at me, so what else am I supposed to do? Not start taking my clothes off? I do this funny thing where every time I get a paycheck, I just start stripping. It's just it's Pavlovian at this point. If I get paid, I assume that I need to start getting naked. I got something in the mail today.
Is it male?
That I forgot to bring up earlier, but I feel like unboxing this at 9 is very good. It says "Do not bend."
Okay.
Don't think about it too hard because you may know what this is. I knew what it was whenever I saw it. I'd forgotten about it though because it had been a minute since I had gotten it.
I don't remember what this is.
Good. It aged not great.
Excellent.
Now, Beards, what are you seeing right now? What are you seeing right now if you're not watching on Twitch?
It's 4 Sons and 4 guy.
It is a signed, numbered picture of the Sons and 4 guy. It is in a big sleeve, which is good, so it won't get damaged whenever I figure out a way to hang it in the office.
And cry over it.
It's waterproof.
That's that thing's laminated.
It's actually like a giant card protector, like you would slide a card into. I didn't know this was a thing, but it makes sense. It's an 8x11. You can get it's basically an 8x11 card protector that you just top loader. And it is signed by, his first name is Nick. His last name starts with an M. I think his middle name includes a T because he just wrote NTM Sons and 4, but it's also numbered 6 of 25 in purple Sharpie.
How much do you think the 4th one went for?
Well, I actually went through, I did look for that to see if there was any fun serial number stuff. Because number 22 would have been DeAndre Ayton's number, 1 is Booker, and it's number 1 on the list and all that stuff. So I figure I did bid on 4 first, I believe, on one of the 4 out of some things. But this is the cheapest one that I could find, and I think including $4.44 shipping, I think it cost me, I think I told you it was $6.69, which is not planned, but it was just sort of the universe blessing me for making a good purchase. So, look, is the magic of Sons and 4 somewhat damaged by them losing 4 games in a row to lose the NBA Finals? No. But if it was, even then, even in that world, I would still be able to hang this opposite of Rudy's chair in our office. And the specifics of it being against the Denver Nuggets made this a purchase that I do not regret, even when I owed it, despite it costing me, a lunch probably.
Now listen, just because they lost this year doesn't mean the impact of Sons and 4 guy has completely gone away.
Absolutely.
Because I would like to remind people, and I don't remember what the year this was. I think it was 2013, when the Milwaukee Bucks played the Miami Heat in the first round, and somebody asked Brandon Jennings, "Hey Brandon, how do you think the series is going to go?" And he said, "Bucks in 6," and we all laughed at him because it was a stupid prediction. But guess what? They had him in a truck at the parade.
As he deserved to be.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
They won it in 6.
They did.
If
6 years later.
If the Suns in 6 years sweep a finals victory, frankly, if they win a championship at all, Sons and 4 guy is going to be on a float somewhere.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So you're right. I think it's, and also a great whirlwind for while we had it.
Yes.
A great whirlwind of
definitely.
Sons and 4.
Way more than Brandon Jennings saying Bucks in 6 because that didn't make it out of the first round.
Yeah.
And also it was Brandon Jennings.
Because Sons and 4 was actually fulfilled. They won in 4 over the Nuggets, which is, he was talking to Nuggets fans, not Bucks fans
and
or Clippers fans. And beating the ever-living bleep out of them. Yeah, yes. Which is great. So that's exciting. So that came in today. Best $6.69 I've ever spent.
And that $4.44 in shipping. Nice.
No. That is the nice number. Altogether, it was $6.69, including shipping.
Oh, okay.
I got the actual thing for $2, $2 or $3, and part of it went to charity. Apparently, I don't know. Some of the stuff was more expensive than I was willing to pay.
Sure.
Because this is, I would say that I bought this 95%. You know what? I'm gonna say I bought this 60% as a joke and 40% as a very specific, very weird moment in the history of my favorite basketball team.
That's fair.
But I don't think I would have spent more than $10 on it probably with that ratio.
Yeah.
And so there were he had signed some Steve Nash throwback jerseys he was wearing in the aforementioned photo. He also signed some basketballs that got auctioned off. I was not about to spend $200 on a signed jersey or basketball from Sons and 4 guy. But this I can display, and again, as I said, is a living part of Suns history. And unlike, did I tell you about my NBA Finals hat? Have I mentioned this on the radio yet?
The fact it's cursed, maybe?
Yeah, I think I might have just told you this, but that is what it is.
Yes.
is that I bought as soon as the Suns beat the Clippers, got the email of, hey, locker room gear is out now. And one thing I think the NBA did very, very smartly, I think they've done this for at least a couple years now. The hats don't say, Western Conference champions with a Suns logo on it. I can't remember what the NFL did on this front because I didn't end up. I have a Super Bowl champions hat for the Chiefs, but I didn't get any merch from last year, I don't think. But the NBA hat just says NBA Finals 2021 and a Suns logo. And so the Bucks also have that exact same hat with the Bucks logo there. And so buying that hat ahead of the finals was an easy decision for me because if you buy the conference championship gear, right? If it says AFC champions or Western Conference champions or whatever, either way that becomes kind of rough. Because if you win, you bought the second best merch you could have bought for your team, right? But if you lose, you are wearing silver medal. You're wearing silver medal t-shirts, basically. But the hats that I bought, I got mine and Darren's, those are just like, hey, we are in the NBA Finals. In fact, I had again, I think, I didn't mention this in the show because I think Renee lost it. I had a 1993 Suns NBA Finals hat that doesn't have a Bulls logo or anything on it, just a Suns logo, 1993 NBA Finals. And that is still, either way, I think that ages better.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because you're saying, hey, I was here, the Suns were here for this, and if they win it, you'll look at this and go, that's when they won. And if they lose, you look at it and go, well, you know, they were in the finals, and that was as good as it was going to get for you, so you may as well buy the dumb hat. It also, I like the look of this hat better than I like the championship one. Would I have bought, at least maybe 1 to 12 Phoenix Suns NBA championship memorabilia items? Yes.
If they fit.
Wouldn't have even mattered.
Well, that's fair.
Wouldn't have even mattered. If they would have sold out immediately, the only thing I could buy was a small that I had to wear as like a small T-shirt that I wear is basically a crop top. I would still be standing up doing radio right now so people could see, NBA champion Phoenix Suns and then my belly button.
And then in that case, I would not have panned the camera up when you started standing up here. I would have just left it where it was.
Which would have just been on my belly.
Yes.
My exposed tummy.
Yes.
That might have been a terms of service violation on Twitch.
Stand in a hot tub, you're fine.
That's a great point. I feel like that's got to be where we go from here.
Just feel like one of the little kiddie pools.
I feel like you know what?
Room temperature.
I am standing in one right now. Prove me wrong. You can't see my feet. You might be able to from by. Please don't zoom in on my feet. I don't want a Wiki Feet account. I don't.
Don't worry.
Well, you said don't worry very strangely.
I could do that, but I'm not gonna. Don't worry.
I mean, you can. I don't.
It's fine.
It is what it is at this point.
Fine.
There was something else I was going to... Oh, the hats. So I bought the hats right after the Clippers series, and before we even knew, who the Suns were going to be playing, and they took a long time to ultimately ship, which seemed kind of silly because they were all like pre-made, right? And I don't know, whatever. They ended up arriving after Game 2. So Darren and I had our new hats, and we wore them when we watched Game 3, and the Suns lost. And then Game 4, and then the Suns lost. And then Game 5, and the Suns lost. And then for Game 6, Darren continued wearing his. I went to that purple hat that I had with the retro logo on it. I went to a different Suns hat for Game 6, just for my own sake. Just so I'm not thinking about, is this hat cursed? And then they lost that one anyway as well. And so I'm wondering, I don't think, I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. And I don't think it's my fault, that the Suns lost the finals. But I am going to need them to do something pretty substantially successful, like win a single basketball game, when I am wearing and in possession of the finals hat, just so I know it's not cursed for me, right? Like, again, it didn't fail to guard Giannis. I just haven't. That hat to me, I think the curse is at the very least that hat means losing to me. Even though it is celebrating the greatest season that the Suns have had in my entire lifetime. Please advise. Do you have any cursed sports clothing or memorabilia?
The only thing I can think of is, I think it was 2012, and Boston played Miami in the conference finals that year. Paul Pierce hit some crazy shot in Game 5 in LeBron's face in Miami. They're up 3-2. I have, of course, because I'm me, a Bill Russell jersey.
Is that the one hanging in the office now?
Is.
Okay.
It is. Obviously, Bill Russell wore number 6. I wore it for Game 6. That was in Boston. I didn't go. I was, on TV. And LeBron did dirty things to my basketball team. And they did not, in fact, win in 6. They did not, in fact, win in 7 either.
Yeah.
And there it hangs in the office.
Staring back at you cursedly.
Yeah.
Really, right? Like, how often do you look at that jersey and think, oh, you mother bleeper?
Not that often.
That's good, at least. But what year was that?
2012.
When did they win it?
Who?
The Celtics.
2008.
So, okay, this was... Oh, yeah, that's right. All right, so that jersey could still be cursed. They haven't gotten past that point since then. 2008 is a sneaky long time ago.
Yes, it is. I was a freshman in high school.
Obama got elected for the first time in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
That was Obama McCain? Yeah. That feels like a long time ago.
Jeez.
But the Celtics winning the title does not feel that long ago. Huh.
Other than that, I don't think I have any cursed sports memorabilia, at least nothing that I can think of.
Do you have anything that you are superstitious about? Or like I'll say this, here's what I can say definitively. You are a habitual person in a major way. You're a huge habitual person. You wear the same hat. You wore, how long did you wear that gross tan hat that still probably exists somewhere, that khaki hat?
Several years.
You wore that here every day. You were running the board here for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was the same Royals hat every day for a very long time. Backwards, always.
Yeah.
And then this Chiefs hat you have, it's the same hat every day, backwards, always. There's no way that you do that as a superstitious thing, because we have had way too many terrible radio shows for you to think that hat has some magic to it. But you're definitely a creature of habit in that way.
Sure.
Like, you've got your things figured out.
The reason that I like to wear the hat is because if I don't wear the hat and then I put my headphones on, it just feels weird. It feels like they're always trying to slide off one way or the other.
Sure.
And with the hat, it's got that little nubbin right at the top.
Oh, it's called
I don't know what it's called.
Oh, man.
But I'm able to take my headphones and just the little top part of the headphones, slide it all the way back. It rests right in front of that, and it stays there, and it's perfect.
Is it a squatchy?
I don't know. I just call it the little nubbin.
Don't think that's what it's called.
That's what I call it.
But do you have anything that you do superstitiously at all?
Not that I can think of.
Think harder. Well, I Google, what did I say?
Squatchy? Just Google, what's the little nubbin on the top of a hat called? That will give you the answer.
I think it's a squatchy, but there's also that character from Rick and Morty named Squanchy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a squatchy.
Okay.
Squatchee.
Why are things called the way they are?
Or a squatcho. Let's get into language a little bit. Why are things called what they're called?
Why words?
Why words be?
How do words? But no, I don't think I'm superstitious about anything.
Trying to think if I am. I think I'll do stuff like here's where I think I'm closer to. I'm not superstitious. I don't think that things that I wear are actually going. I am not impacting a sporting event by what I am wearing at home or where I'm sitting on the couch. I did find myself really for like the first time ever, I think, doing that during the finals a little bit, just without even thinking about it. Of just like, all right, they've been on a good run. I'm going to keep my hat backwards or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't actually believe that does anything. But it came out a little bit in the playoffs for some reason.
You saying that made me think of one that I actually did. So Chiefs season, it's usually cold.
Sure.
I wear hoodies.
Yes.
Because hoodies are great.
Sure. Ready to wear them again right now. Wish it wasn't so GD hot out.
Chiefs postgame.
Yeah.
I run that most of the time.
Almost every time.
Yeah. And I'm sitting in the other room cutting audio or listening to the game, cutting highlights and all that kind of stuff, wearing my hoodie, being comfortable.
And then Dustin Colquitt kicked a punt.
Sometimes the Chiefs don't do so well late in the games, and usually they're, high-pressure games.
Sure.
And sometimes I get a little sad, and I'll put my hood up. And I did that.
Yeah.
For the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Which they won.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, hey,
Got some power here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I left my hood that way, like the rest of the night until the Border Patrol came.
You kept it through the post-game show. The Chiefs got lost at that point. I think you're right.
And then this
that
year...
That show was bonkers,
It
man.
was wild.
That was insane.
And then this year, Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's cold.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my hoodie.
They won again.
I don't think it was the same hoodie.
That's fine.
I don't remember.
Sure.
I think it was the city champion ones.
Yeah, Charlie Hustle one.
Excellent.
Such a good hoodie.
Excellent.
God, I wish it was 60 degrees colder so I could wear that hoodie.
They weren't doing too hot.
Oh, that hoodie is so
I
good.
put my hood up.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
And
nothing happened. And then it died.
I'm
still going to put my hood up, though, when I get sad, though, during Chiefs games. That will still happen.
Right, but that becomes a habitual thing again. It's comforting. You know? That's where I end up, what I'm thinking, like, there are plenty of things where, like, I've started being more, you've been over to the house, so you can speak to this very directly. Our basement's like partially finished, and we kind of, it wasn't ever really used as a living room, but we kind of just made it become one and all of that.
Yeah.
One of the most important things is Renee
I
at
like
one
the
point.
bench chairs.
Say again?
I like the bench chairs.
Oh, the booths?
Yeah, the booths.
Did you get the full story on those booths, by the way?
Yes,
okay.
Renee told us.
Okay. I might tell that story at some point so people can know how Renee and I almost broke up.
Basically, think friends.
Yeah, but instead of pivot, it was, why did you buy this? Go to hell. This was the dumbest thing of all time. My body hurts. I hate it here.
How many times did you have to cut those to get them through downstairs?
All right, so let me talk about these booths real quick. Well, first, Renee bought lights that they look like normal light bulbs, but there's a remote that you can then change them to a whole bunch of different colors. And so now I have a ring light in my office that I can do that with. I have a light bulb like in my desk lamp that I can do that with. I just installed some extra little light bar things in my car that I can change the light colors on. And I got to be honest, right now it seems like it might be a little bit too much. I might need to do some moving around because I'm not really trying to look like the cool cars from, in the movie Cars that end up coming through. I'm not a bad boy car.
Furious.
Yeah. I'm not necessarily trying to get into the Fast and Furious family.
You're not looking for street races?
No, I'm really not. But it's inside. It's not underlit, right? It's just in the cabin of the car or whatever.
Okay.
But I do sort of, like I'm not necessarily buying into the energy of the light or whatever, but I do kind of buy into like the vibe of being able to change the colors of in the room with the light. I think is great. I just enjoy doing that. And so that's not superstitious, but it's just something that I've been like leaning into more lately. I think it's kind of fun. Anyway, so about a year and a few months ago, mid-pandemic, girlfriend Renee and I, she finds this house, and we move in, and everything is
rights.
Wonderful. Squatters' rights. We never paid for it or anything. But so we move in together about a little over a year ago. And the house has been wonderful, and it was good to start with, and I feel like we've been able to kind of make it our own in our time there as well. But one of the first things that Renee bought for the house, she found on Facebook Marketplace or something, these diner booths, super lightly used. You would find them in, a diner of some sort. They're that deep red that has a little sparkle in it.
High back.
The high back is what I would not have expected when she was saying that she was buying booths. You sit down and the back continues going up. It's not one of those like long booths at Taco Bell. We're talking like a speakeasy kind of booth. And it's two of them, and so they make a semicircle, like a half circle, to put them together.
Yeah, it's the booth that you get for like 12 people or whatever, and it's the round thing, kind of, except like really tall.
It's really tall, and it's not that. You could probably fit 3 or 4 people on it.
But that's the kind I'm talking about.
Pretty comfortably, but right. So it is a relatively smallish circle, but with a very tall back. And also, there are these, they sit on big squared off bases because that's what you need for the support there, and that's essentially the shape that they're in. But so Renee buys them, and then also like uses an app of some sort to pay somebody to, like, with a pickup truck to just come and get them and then load them. And then they wouldn't fit in the front door. So she and whoever she paid brought them around to the back door because apparently that door was wider or something. And that guy just like eventually left. It rained. She tore down the shower curtain at one point to try to keep it from getting wet, because if it gets wet, then we're all like, it's just not made for that. There's exposed wood and everything.
Right.
And then she's like, oh, well, let's try to get it in through the like, I was kind of trying to come up with a different way to phrase this, but it's already too late. So I'm just going to stall long enough that you can't use it for a liner into the back door. And then
I can cut it.
Then we have to go down a whole bunch of stairs. Then we have it down into the basement, and that's a very narrow hallway as well.
Yeah, and a low ceiling, kind of.
So instead of ever measuring anything ever, what Renee does is basically she bought like a jacksaw or something. Is that a thing? Handsaw of some sort. And also just normal saws. Eventually the plug-in handsaw breaks, and she doesn't buy another one. We're just down to normal handsaws. So instead of really ever measuring the choke points anywhere throughout this process, Renee just sort of measures like the first step or not at all, and just sort of starts hacking. We're just cutting the part of the base, and she's torn off part of the top, and we get it inside the door. Well, then it gets stuck at the top of the stairs, so we have to saw more. And then we get it down the stairs a little bit, and it gets stuck on like the handrail. We have to saw a little bit more. Then we get down to the bottom, where it is actually the thinnest, the doorway at the bottom of the basement, and we have to saw it even more. And we're doing it while it is stuck in the stairway, which is like cement on the walls. Mercifully, if it was like this was all drywall, there would be a security deposit we're not getting back.
No,
but at least it was all cement. But there's literally a point towards the very bottom where it is clearly stuck. And I am like holding it up and sawing a different part, because as soon as I saw through this other part, the thing is going to fall down on top of me. So we eventually, over stressful hours that could have been done a whole lot easier with, I don't know, asking for the dimensions before you bought the booths, we eventually get that one all the way down. And then we have to go do the second one. And a lot of the same mistakes were, in fact, repeated. It wasn't as bad. And somewhere after the first one, I vaguely remember saying, I am not bleeping touching that one until it is exactly what it needs to be, and then we can carry it downstairs. Because these were miserable hours to get these booths that I don't even like sitting in downstairs.
I thought they were cool.
They are very cool, and
cool.
Every single time anyone comes over, the first things out of their mouth when they enter that mother bleeping basement is, oh, those booths are cool.
Yeah.
And I just have steam come out of my... You sat in the booths.
We did.
Got a little table over there. We can change the light color over the booth, set a whole different vibe. It looks
Scout
great.
hopped up on the seat and came over and sat by us.
Scout loves it because it's another place where people can sit, and she can come up and hop over and sit with...
Yeah.
Every time anyone comes over, love the booths. Boy, those booths are cool. And Renee gets to go, oh, thank you. I found them on Facebook. And I have to sit there and just eat it. Just knowing that one of the top 5 most miserable moments of the last year and a half all ended up leading to you guys getting into the basement and going, wow, those booths are neat. And Renee going, oh, yeah, I picked them out.
But they are cool.
They are cool. They are cool. And clearly I'm over it. I'm not holding anything within my soul still to this day. I'm not holding a grudge. It's just that I thought measuring was like a thing most people knew how to do. But you live and you learn. If you're me. And maybe, maybe not, if you're the other person in this story. But the booths are very cool. Anyway. All right, I was going to ask at the beginning of this segment if you wanted to have me open the priority mail do not bend package that I had, or if you wanted me to bring up one of our favorite recurring people in the world of sports that we can dunk on for a little bit. Decided I wanted to open the picture first, and then I ended up talking about those cursed booths for a while. So whenever we come back, I will tell you something that happened today. And the rest of the segment will be very easy.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
Justin Guile has commented on the Facebook page and says, Josh, Beards, I love you guys. I never get to watch live because I'm at work, but I listen to the podcast. Please keep up the good work almost entirely. Thank you, Justin.
With Joshua Brisco.
It's so nice to hear that someone loves me still. Justin doesn't care that I didn't successfully get him into the Panic at the Disco show tonight. Justin loves me anyway. Thank you, Justin.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm not going to retell that story, but that one still hurts. I didn't realize it, but that one still hurts.
I think I played that in the Valentine's Day intro.
You probably did. That one's just, yeah. To be clear, that one wasn't by choice. That was just me failing. Yeah, I did fail. It reminded me, Beards, there was, I don't know if you got any of these. I got like 300 Facebook notifications over the last like 2 days.
Yep.
I meant to bring that up with you.
I did too.
It was about like some music companies like rescinding their copyright claims in some old ESPN Kansas City Facebook videos. Didn't need a notification about any of that.
No,
definitely didn't need like 300.
I pulled out my phone yesterday and I was like, oh, on Facebook. I've got some notification on Facebook, and it just does like the 20+ thing.
Yeah.
And I was like,
you gotta
this is weird.
You got to freak out when you see that.
And then it was scrolling. Why are there so many?
Yeah, I legitimately ended up with 2 emails that I think send every 100 notifications. So there were a lot of them. But one I clicked on to just sort of see where they were coming from or whatever, and it was an ESPN Kansas City day where girlfriend Renee was on the show, and she told some story that I don't want to give you too many details, because if you remember it, I would rather you tell me, because I do not have it verbatim. But it was some story about like dogs being put in suitcases, or being like chopped up and put in. So maybe it was a person that got chopped up and put in a suitcase. Or something very dark.
I don't know what this is about.
Something very macabre. Something very dark. And then by the end of the show, I had found it on Snopes that the whole thing was total nonsense. And it was just like Renee telling a story that she had heard. It wasn't something that had happened. It was all very weird. But I was wondering if you had any memory of that.
No, I do not remember that at all.
It was also, it might have been the same show, or it was very close to another show that we had a copyright come off of, that like we had talked to Jason Lisk of The Big Lead, and I was trying to figure out who the audio was. I didn't recognize the voice at all. I was like, when did we talk to Jason?
I don't remember. I don't even remember that name.
It works for The Big Lead, or at least I don't really know if he's doing anything different now. I can't remember why we had him on, but we did.
Was I doing that show?
Yeah. Yeah, you were there in your little Beards McFly box.
Okay.
That's the crazy thing about doing, because now we were saying that we've been doing AES on 810 for
2.5 years.
2.5 years if you count whenever we were doing Sports Night, basically. The rebranding didn't come until later, but we started doing that predominantly the 2.5 years ago or whatever it was.
The beginning of 2019.
And it was officially AES sometime post-April, I think.
That sounds right.
We did it as Sports Night for a while still. But if you count how long we were on ESPN Kansas City.
August 2017!
We are, so we're about to hit 4 years total in August?
Yeah.
I think that's right. I guess that's right. Lots of people, almost, I guess everyone, I think, pretty much on this radio station has been doing radio longer than 4 years. But it is funny to be confronted with something from 3 or 4 years ago and to just have no memory of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not even an inkling. Just like you could have literally said, you could have made something up, and I would have believed it just as much as I believe the truth there.
You remember when we had Dan Dockich on?
That did happen.
I wasn't there for that day either.
That did actually happen. And that dude sucks, so we will not do that again. What? Should I not have said that?
Hopefully he's not listening again in Coleman.
Well, listen, Dan, if you are listening, go ahead and call 913-381-1010. You're going to get a busy signal, and we're not going to pick up, but if you want to.
If you want to.
Yeah, he said something about KU, and we gave him I tweeted the phone number at him. He said Allen Fieldhouse smelled bad or something.
I think that's still the most downloaded episode that we have.
Not on the. I don't think that can be true. It was probably the most.
It's up there. I know that.
Definitely
for sure.
the most we had to that point for sure.
It was up there.
I think Scott wrote about it on Fog or something like that. And we shared it all over the place. Yeah, that was weird, man. What a weird day. Anyway, do you want to hear the one of our favorite recurring characters said something today?
Ooh, yes.
I am against the professionalization of college athletics. One more time, because I didn't pronounce it very well. I am against the professionalization of college athletics. That is not a quote from Dan Dockich. Do you know who it is a quote from, Beards?
It's probably Dabo.
Dabo Swinney!
Yeah.
Got it in one.
I saw there was something that he was saying today.
This quote sucks. Dabo Swinney makes about $8 million a year. You can do some math on that if you want, Beards, vis-a-vis Is Gruden Gone Yet?
Oh, yeah.
Because it's going to be very similar. IsGrudenGoneYet.com, by the way. The Dabo is making a little less than John Gruden is as the absolute supreme leader of the football team that plays in Las Vegas. I don't know. Maybe Dabo made $6 or $7 million coaching middle school, like coaching some peewee football somewhere. But I will say that there are very few people. I mean this. There are very few people in all of college athletics anywhere who have benefited directly more from the professionalization of college athletics than Dabo bleeping Swinney has. He is in rarefied air because of the professionalization of college athletics.
By the way, very quickly,
Please.
The answer is no.
Okay.
There are still 6 years, 24 weeks, 5 days, 15 hours, 19 minutes, 30, 29, 28,
Gruden
27.
has 6 years left on his deal still.
He has made $9 since I opened the website. $35,422,539 in total. He is still owed $64,557,457.
A lot of money and a lot of time
A
left.
lot of money.
It's just the thing with Dabo, and Dabo has said, you know, if players start getting paid, I'm going to quit. And I've not seen him submit a letter of resignation to step away from his $8 million. But all of that is so frustrating because there is literally, like, this is going to sound incredibly mean, and it's also just going to simply be incredibly accurate. To say, if players get paid, I quit, to say that I am against the professionalization of college athletics is one of the most thinly veiled slimeball stances you can possibly take as somebody who is at the top of the money mountain, Smog the Dragon, spitting fire down at anybody else who tries to come over to that mountain and just take $1, not even from your mountain, just to add $1 to their pocket that you cannot possibly care less about.
Not even the Arkenstone.
Absolute scumbag. What were you going to say?
Not even the Arkenstone.
I thought a really nerdy Lord of the Rings poll.
Yes, it's a giant diamond that Smog had that all the dwarves wanted because it was a giant diamond.
Dabo's only discernible opinion here is that you should not be able to make money. That's it. That is his only opinion is I should be able to get filthy rich, and you should bleep right off. That's insane. It's like again, I feel like I need to toe the line somewhere between being hyperbolic and trying to accurately explain what a D-bag move that is. As a not even like in a bad moment or anything, but as a platform, I should be able to get filthy rich. Nobody else should. Is like it makes you think that you're a bad person. You okay over there, Beards?
I'm okay. My shoe is doing something weird.
Your
It's fine.
shoe is doing something weird.
It felt weird. There's a part in the back that's kind of like peeling off from the sole, and I just didn't know if like that.
Time to get new shoes. You buy a pair of shoes every like once a year or something,
once a
and
year
then
or
just
so.
wear the bleep out of them.
Yeah.
New shoes time for Beards.
Yeah, it's about a new time.
Nike's website's having a sale right now.
Okay.
There's the Kicks Under Cost Twitter account. Maybe something will pop up.
Also, by the way, the answer is still no on Is Gruden Gone Yet? He has now made $59 since I've opened the website.
Dabo's probably made about 50 in that same time span, and he doesn't think his players should be able to make $50 for an appearance in a commercial for a local restaurant. What a douche! Like, just what a miserable person. It's so thinly veiled, man. Like, there's not even an attempt.
Is there a veil?
No, maybe not. Maybe not. Hey, I'm Dabo Swinney, and I have so much sway and power here that the emperor can be naked in front of you, and you won't say anything about it because I'm Dabo Swinney.
So what happens when one of his players gets a contract sponsorship?
Oh, I'm sure they already have, and nothing. The answer is nothing. He's gonna keep saying all of this, and again, like the specifics of for Dabo, who is running a professional organization, to say I am against the professionalization of college athletics. Well, and also his players are going to cash in on name, image, and likeness stuff. And also Clemson's going to help their players do that, with or without Dabo, because it's going to be an important recruiting tool.
How many car dealership commercials do you think Dabo did?
He would do all of them. He'll take every nickel anywhere he can find it, and good for him, I guess, in that regard. If you have a chance to make money, make the money. But to say that I should be able to do that, but you should not be able to, even whenever it does not impact me in any way whatsoever, it's just a power grab thing. It's just I want to make sure that my players are here making no money that is being offered to them, that money is held out in front of them, and that they have to turn it down. I worked at Chick-fil-A for a while, my first job. There was a no tips rule at Chick-fil-A. Several times I had old ladies be like, here, take my $5 for your great service or whatever. And I'd say, no, we don't do that. The logic of that, I guess, is so customers don't feel pressured to. I'll tell you what, nobody at a fast food restaurant has ever felt pressured to leave a tip for anybody. That's not how fast food works, making your whatever dollars per hour. But there's something to that of like, no, like, hey, just so you guys know, all the profits come to me, and you guys can get paid an education while you are playing on ostensibly a professional football team. Like if you took Clemson up against the worst team in the XFL, but you had Trevor Lawrence at quarterback for that Clemson team, Clemson's probably winning that game because of the quarterback play. It's a profession. It is professional football. College athletics are deeply professionalized. The players have... Football is the player's profession, just as it is Dabo's. And he's made tens of millions of dollars because of that. And I have not seen him either resign, as he said he would do, or nor have I seen him turn away any money because he wants to keep amateurism pure. I don't know how you can have an opinion that bad from a very factual basis and then ever expect anyone to take you seriously on anything. It just doesn't make any sense. And you can say something to the extent of, I prefer it in a pure, more amateur form. But but you have done nothing in terms of using your immense power to volunteer. You would like to see sacrifices made to return to an era that maybe never existed and certainly hasn't existed in a very long time. You would like sacrifices to be made to keep college athletics much more like high school athletics than professional athletics, but you are not willing yourself to give up anything in terms of sacrifice. Really stupid. I hate that more than I hate those booths. If Dabo came to the house and went down in the basement, I would tell him that he could have the booths as long as he could get some unpaid labor to take them away for free. Then he would hire someone because he loves professionalism. He makes $8 million a year. Scumbag. Too strong? Now, if I'm comparing Dabo Swinney and Dan Dockich, which of the two of them I find generally more reprehensible? Let's take a break.
At JB Briscoe, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports
Beard, did you ever work a customer service job?
No.
That makes sense.
with Joshua Briscoe
You're kind of a douche.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
That is a good line. That's an old one, too. I have one thing that I've been kind of meaning to get to a little bit at some point this week, and I wanted to round out the week this way, especially with sort of the angry energy this hour has had, most about Booths, Dan Dockich, and Dabo Swinney. There's no way I was going to ask this as a question, but I'm going to assume the answer is no. Did you read the GQ story? Can I stop now? Was the answer no?
That's probably not.
About Jason Sudeikis,
No.
the interview that it was going around pretty heavily, like earlier this week, I think, because it's brilliant. Like it's got to be less fun if you haven't watched Ted Lasso yet. Season 2, I think
I haven't done that
premiered
either.
today. It's really good. I haven't watched season 2 at all yet. I'm almost done rewatching season 1. Renee and I have one more episode left. She hadn't watched it yet. But some of the very Ted Lasso-esque stuff that comes through in the GQ story is such a good read. And you get sort of, you get Jason Sudeikis' genuine personality, and at some point he explains like how much of Ted Lasso kind of comes from within himself. And there was the one quote, because he had a very public, very weird sort of breakup with Olivia Wilde. And she was shortly thereafter, I think, photographed like holding hands with Harry Styles or something. And to be left for Harry Styles, also she is definitely older than Harry Styles is, which is whatever. But like Harry Styles is significantly younger than Jason Sudeikis. I guess that's how I should rank that. Not about Olivia Wilde, but about Sudeikis to Harry Styles. That's got to be a weird time. I think Olivia Wilde also might be with John Mulaney now. Is that true? Hold on, did I make that up? John Mulaney got divorced and then was Olivia Munn, different Olivia.
Oh, yeah. I always get them confused.
Nope. Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe. Dabo Swinney makes $8.3 million.
Which one was in Cowboys versus Aliens?
Olivia Wilde.
Are you sure?
Yes. Google it, but yes. Pretty sure.
Cowboys versus...
I can definitely picture Olivia Wilde, and I think she was in Cowboys vs. Aliens. I have not seen that movie since it was in theaters.
It was Olivia Wilde. That's the only time I saw the movie, too. It was fun, though.
There was a section, though, kind of him talking about Olivia Wilde and the Harry Styles thing and all of that. And he said, I'll have a better understanding of why in a year, and an even better one in 2, and an even greater one in 5. And it'll go from being, a book of my life to becoming a chapter to a paragraph to a line to a word to a doodle. And that might be the most profound, simplified way of explaining grief and stages of your life and being able to compress and compartmentalize and process all of that over the course of a period of time that also allows yourself all that time to do. You should go take this into your weekend, go read the GQ article with Jason Sudeikis. It's excellent. And also watch Ted Lasso, and Dabo Swinney sucks. Bye, Mom.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Briscoe on Sports Radio 810 WHB.